Chapter 23-21. They were all here, so why were there some who smelled it and some who didn't? Furthermore, those who smelled it were all different. That was strange. Look! There's roasted meat over there. A whole roasted beast is roasting over the fire. That's where the fragrance is coming from. A devil cultivator pointed at a ferocious beast roasting over a bonfire not far away. The golden yellow skin of the ferocious beast looked very crispy. Smelling the fragrance, the devil cultivators, who had only eaten some fruits to fill their stomachs after traveling for 2 days, couldn't help but swallow their saliva. There's not a single person here, but there's roasted meat. Could it be that the meat is poisonous? A devil cultivator said as his eyes stared at the oily roasted meat. There's even wine boiling over there. The people of Phoenix City are too indulgent. Where did they get the wine? How many years has it been since I smelled wine? I'm dying of thirst. A devil cultivator's face was full of greed. He couldn't help but walk forward as he said, "Why don't I see if there's any poison? If there's no poison, brothers, we can fill our stomachs." Everyone's eyes moved slightly, but they didn't say anything. They watched as the person stepped forward and used a silver needle to test the roasted meat. Seeing that the needle was still as shiny as before, he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "The roasted meat isn't poisonous." He then tested the wine. There was also no poison. He immediately said to them, "The meat and wine aren't poisonous." With that, he scooped up a bowl of warm wine and drank it. He then cut a large piece of meat and ate it. Everyone saw that he was fine even after taking big bites. They couldn't help but swallow their saliva and follow him. "What are you all doing?" The demon Honor's sinister voice rang out. Everyone couldn't help but stop in their tracks. They turned around to look at their master who was walking over. "Master, there's food in front." A devil cultivator whispered. "Food? Humph. Have you forgotten what you're here for? Who allowed you to eat here? Find them all. Find them and kill them one by one." The demon Honor's gloomy voice was filled with killing intent. Everyone's hearts trembled. They immediately replied, "Yes." Then they scattered and searched the city. "What are you waiting for?" The demon sovereign glared at the demonic cultivator who was eating the meat, then lifted his leg and kicked him. The man scrambled away, not forgetting to swallow the meat in his mouth. At this time, the demon venerable sat down by the bonfire and asked the devil cultivator beside him to cut a piece of meat for him and ladle a bowl of wine for him. Eating meat and drinking wine, he cursed under his breath, "The people of Phoenix City really know how to enjoy themselves. We don't even have any wine, but who knows where they got all this good stuff." When the demonic cultivator beside him heard this, he hurriedly said, "Master, once we exterminate the people of Phoenix City, their things will also be ours. At that time, we won't have to worry about not having good wine to drink." Ha 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 ha. Well said. The demon lord raised his head and laughed. He waved his hand and said, "You get a bowl of wine too." When the devil cultivator heard this, his eyes lit up and he hurriedly expressed his thanks, "Thank you, master." Then, he went forward to get a bowl of wine and gulped it down like it was water. He hadn't tasted wine for many years. Now that he tasted it, he felt that it was so wonderful that words couldn't describe it. However, just as the two of them were drinking wine and eating meat, suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the city, "How can this be? How can this be? Hiss! It's so itchy! It's so itchy!" Chapter 23-22. Hearing that voice, the demon king stood up. But just as he stood there, his vision started to blur. He felt a buzzing sound in his ears, and his vision started to blur. A figure appeared in front of him, and it looked like he was holding a knife and was about to slash at him. Instinctively, he threw out a backhand attack. Bang! Pft! Master. The demonic cultivator who had been sent flying fell to the ground. He felt his sternum shatter and his internal organs were injured. Blood was still flowing from his mouth. He seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he could not utter a single word. Unwillingly, he swallowed his breath. The demonic cultivator's cry of "Master" woke the demon Honor from his daze. He was shocked. After calming himself down, he saw that the person who had been sent flying was the demonic cultivator who had been helping him cut meat and ladling wine. Sounds of frenzied voices came from behind him. The sound of swords clashing and the aura of battle surging in the air made him take a big step forward. With one step, his figure instantly flew more than 10 meters away. When he arrived at the scene of the battle, he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He saw that the people who were fighting fiercely in front of him were all his subordinates. However, he did not know what was going on. All of them were recklessly slashing at each other as if they did not care about their lives. The scene was bloody and there were many corpses on the ground. When he saw this, he felt his blood rushing to his head as if it was about to explode. He shouted angrily, "All of you, stop! All of you, stop! What are you doing?" However, his voice was not enough to make them stop. Those people were still slashing at each other. Every one of them displayed an extremely savage and bloodthirsty side. Their eyes were filled with the determination to kill each other. Seeing this, the demon Honor was anxious and furious. His monstrous anger surged. He clenched his fists and raised his head to roar, "People of Phoenix City! Get the hell out here for me!" His voice contained the coercion and aura of a celestial honor. As his voice rang out, the coercion and aura also spread in the air. The powerful coercion came crashing down, instantly causing the demonic cultivators who were in the midst of the chaotic battle to fall to the ground, holding their heads and screaming. At this moment, a red figure silently appeared in the night sky. Her red clothes fluttered in the night wind, and her back was facing the crescent moon in the night sky. Therefore, the demon venerables below could not see her face clearly. "It's you. You did it, didn't you?" The demon lord stared at the figure that appeared in midair. Murderous intent burst out from his body. He immediately gathered his chi and flew upwards. When he arrived in the air and saw the face of the red figure, even though he was filled with anger and killing intent, he was still stunned. That face was indeed peerless. The corners of her eyes were slightly raised, and the corners of her lips were slightly curled. All of them exuded a devilish and wanton aura. Although she was dressed in men's clothing, it did not detract from her peerless elegance and beautiful appearance. This woman. She was even more stunning than the portrait. Gifts are reciprocal. Are you satisfied with the gift I prepared for you? Phone 9 raised the corners of his lips and chuckled. His evil voice spread in the night wind with a spiritual aura. The demon reverend stared at her. Even though she was a peerlessly beautiful woman, he still had the urge to strangle her to death at this moment. Chapter 23-23. The cultivators of Phoenix City who came out from behind were astonished to see the chaotic scene. They thought it would be a fierce battle, but they didn't even need to do anything. More than half of the demonic cultivators had already died. They were secretly shocked as they watched the frenzied demonic cultivators kill each other. Their master's ability was too terrifying. Fortunately, they followed their master. Otherwise, they would be the ones who had lost their minds and were killing each other. Attack! Don't leave a single one alive. Old Man Gu ordered in a deep voice, ordering the people behind him to eliminate the demonic cultivators whose fighting strength was gradually weakening. Hundreds of people rushed out from the shadows, waving their swords and sabers as they attacked the demonic cultivators, joining the chaotic battle. In the sky, Fengjiu was fighting with the demon sovereign. The moment they exchanged blows, the demon sovereign's expression changed, and he was shocked. "You're not a celestial sage expert. You're a mid-stage celestial sage expert. So what? You just need to know that none of you can escape today." Fengjiu attacked with the red armillary sash in his hand. It was as sharp as a sword. The red sash swept out, carrying the aura of an ancient divine beast. With a bang, it hit the demon sovereign. The demon sovereign groaned and retreated. A trace of blood flowed out of his mouth, and his eyes widened in shock. He muttered, "The aura of an ancient divine beast. How can there be the aura of an ancient divine beast? Who are you? Someone who can kill you." As soon as Fengjiu finished speaking, the red figure flashed out again. When the red armillary sash swept out, flames appeared with a whoosh. Using the red armillary sash, he suddenly rushed toward the demon sovereign. Just as the demon sovereign was about to block, he found that the spiritual energy in his body suddenly disappeared. He couldn't help but be shocked. In a flash, the flames rushed up his body and burned his hair. The sound of burning flesh and an unpleasant smell entered his nose. The burning pain made him cry out in pain. Unable to extinguish the flames on his body, he hurriedly took off his outer robe and used his hand as a knife to cut off his hair. "I'm going to kill you." His sorry state made him roar out in anger. His hands clenched into fists. Only then did he realize that he had lost all his spiritual energy for some reason, and his body fell from the sky. Feeling that something was wrong with his body, he immediately gritted his teeth, gave up on the body, and fled with his nascent soul. Seeing him decisively take out his nascent soul to escape, Fengjiu was a little surprised of them. Because she didn't expect this, his nascent soul was able to escape from her range. However, this place was protected by a barrier. Even if he escaped with his nascent soul, he wouldn't be able to escape her barrier. She wasn't worried about this. She looked down and saw the demon sovereign's body being stepped on by everyone. Her eyes lit up and she couldn't help but be startled. She saw that when the demon sovereign's nascent soul found that it had nowhere to run, it actually ran back and entered a demonic cultivator's body to possess it. Chapter 23-24. With a muffled groan, the sharp arrow pierced through the demonic cultivator's body, leaving only a bloody hole. The demonic cultivator also fell to the ground. Even in death, his eyes were still wide open, as if he was unwilling to believe that he had been killed just like that. Fengjiu turned around and glanced at Gu Xiang, who was not far away, and revealed a smile. "Well done." Things had gone smoother than she had expected. With the death of the demon sovereign, the matter of taking over the demon city would be much simpler. Below, when the cultivators of Phoenix City saw that the demon sovereign had died, their fighting spirit surged. Each of them fought bravely, and not long after, they had wiped out all the demonic cultivators below. Old Gu had someone check to see if there were any survivors. Finally, he reported to Fengjiu, "Master, there were a total of 201 people. Not a single one survived. After cleaning up, everyone should have a good rest. 3 days later, follow me to attack the demon city." Fengjiu said to everyone. Hearing this, everyone's heart stirred. Sonorous and powerful voices immediately responded, "Yes." Fengjiu returned to the courtyard first, while the others began to clean up the corpses in the city. As the sky gradually brightened, the rogue cultivators guarding outside the city were all shocked. There was no more movement. Was it over? The people of the demon city couldn't have died inside, right? When this thought appeared, the rogue cultivators only felt that it was inconceivable. 3 days later, Phoenix City was still the same as before. However, the news of the demon city's defeat quickly spread. Once this news came out, it finally attracted the attention of the other forces. When the demonic cultivators of the demon city heard the news, they were so frightened that they abandoned the city and fled, not daring to stay there. Because the entire demon city was without a master, it became an empty city. It was also because of this that the people of the other forces sent people to sit down and talk. They felt that the Phoenix Master of Phoenix City had already brought about a threat to them. If they continued to let her go, they were afraid that the next person to be destroyed would be one of them. As the saying goes, if the lips are cold, the teeth will die. Here, the 8 forces were in a balance and had nothing to do with each other. However, since the Phoenix Master had taken over Black Mountain City and now destroyed the Demon City, who would be next? They did not believe that the next person would not be one of them. That person came menacingly and was so powerful. If they did not pay attention to her, it would be too late for regrets. The middle-aged man near Phoenix City also received letters from the other forces. However, after reading them, he threw them to the side. When the old man saw this, he couldn't help but ask, "Master, do you intend to meet them? To talk? What is there to talk about?" The middle-aged man sneered, "I think those people have become stupid after being locked in here. Their brains have slowed down. In this kind of situation, with this kind of change, isn't it very clear what they should do? There. Come with me." Seeing him walk out, the old man hurriedly followed. When they arrived outside, they followed him on their swords. Seeing that they were heading in the direction of the Phoenix City, the old man was so scared that his back was covered in cold sweat. Chapter 23-25. That's right. The middle-aged man stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His robe fluttered in the wind. His eyes were looking afar as he said in a deep voice, "I have to meet the Phoenix Master. Now is the perfect opportunity." The corner of the old man's mouth twitched. He didn't know what to say. His master was different from the people of the other forces. Ever since he took over the mountain, he had been handling the matters below. It could be said that although he was in the city, there were very few people who had seen him on a daily basis. Some of the cultivators who joined later probably didn't know that he was the master. However, after following him for so many years, he found that his master had never made a wrong decision. He believed that his master wouldn't make a mistake this time as well. After about a day, the two arrived at the gate of Phoenix City. Before that, Fengjiu and the others had just returned. As for the Devil City, she had already set up a barrier. No one could enter that place unless she was the one who went there. She had just returned to her courtyard to take a bath when she heard a report from outside. It said that the only immortal venerable expert among the remaining 6 forces, who wasn't a devil cultivator, had come to visit. She came out of the water, put on her clothes, dried her hair, and went outside. "Master, the visitor is one of the neighboring city lords. He's the one who doesn't really care about the affairs of the city. The people here call him Unfettered Venerable Lord. He's waiting outside the city gate." He came alone. Fengjiu raised his brows and looked at Gu Xiang. He brought an old man with him. I looked around and there's no one else behind him. Interesting. She smiled and said, "Invite him to the hall in front. I'll be there in a moment." "Yes." Gu Xiang responded and then left. Outside, Unfettered Venerable Lord was invited in. Behind him was the old man. When the two entered the city, they saw that the cultivators were actually training. There were also some young children and youths at the side. Seeing this, Unfettered Venerable Lord was slightly surprised. He didn't expect that the Phoenix City would even accept children and youths. This Phoenix Master was really strange. "Please come in." Gu Xiang led the way and brought the two of them to the inner hall. After that, he retreated. "Master, this Phoenix City is really different. I didn't think that they would even accept such young children and youths. It seems that the Phoenix Lord of Phoenix City is a very kind person," the old man said objectively. From the moment he entered until now, this was his impression of the Phoenix Lord. Although he had yet to see the Phoenix Master, how cold-blooded could a person who could take in those children and youths be? A kind-hearted person? Unfettered Sovereign Lord chuckled. None of the people exiled to this place are good people. How can a woman like her survive here and make those people worship her as their master? If she doesn't have some tricks up her sleeve, how can it be justified? As for being kind, I don't think that's necessarily the case. At most, they're just unlike other cultivators who willfully slaughter the innocent. Well said. Fengjiu walked in from outside. His gaze fell on the middle-aged man as he said, let alone inside, even outside, there aren't many kind-hearted people. I admit that I'm not a kind-hearted person, but I won't kill the innocent. Chapter 23-26. This is the first time I've met you. It's true that hearing about you can't compare to meeting you in person. Phoenix Master, you're indeed a peerless beauty. You're different from the rest. As he spoke, his gaze fell on Fengjiu's face. As she walked in, her gaze fell on him as well. After hearing his words, she replied, Honorable Lord, you're also extraordinary. You're more courageous than others. She walked to the main seat and sat down. She said to Gu Xiang, who had followed her in, pour the wine. Yes. Gu Xiang responded. He turned around and took out a jug of wine and 2 wine cups. He poured a cup for Fengjiu and the Honorable Lord. Then, he stood at the side with the jug in his hand. Smelling the fragrance of the wine, a smile appeared on the Supremacy's face. I really didn't expect the Phoenix Master to have such good wine. It looks like I should have come earlier. As he spoke, he picked up the wine cup and was about to drink it when the old man behind him stopped him. Master, this wine. The old man was worried that the people of Phoenix City would drug the wine. Knowing what he was thinking, the High Lord smiled and said, Don't worry about it. Only the 2 of us are here today. Moreover, we're already in Phoenix City. Furthermore, with Phoenix Master's strength, even if you want to do anything to us, you don't have to put any effort into the wine. With that, he took a sip of the wine. As the wine entered his mouth, it was mellow and pleasant. He could not help but squint his eyes. His expression carried a trace of reminiscence and intoxication. Ever since I came here, I haven't had such good wine for many years. He finished the wine in his cup and looked at Fengjiu. Phoenix Master, I'm a guest today. As the host, you shouldn't be reluctant to part with this jug of wine, right? Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. Of course not. She gestured for Gu Xiang to put the wine on his table. Seeing this, Gu Xiang stepped forward and put down the wine jug. Then, he returned to Fengjiu's side. Although he was a celestial sage expert, he felt extremely comfortable serving tea and wine by his master's side. At least, he was the only one who could stay by his master's side and serve him in this group of over 100 people. Fortunately, his master did not dislike him for being a rough man. The High Lord took a sip from the wine jug. His actions were casual and unrestrained, as if he wasn't a guest in someone else's house, but in his own. His carefree and unrestrained behavior made Fengjiu think highly of him. Gu Xiang. And Fengjiu. I don't have anything else here, but I do have 2 dishes to go with wine. If you don't mind, please come outside. She made an inviting gesture and invited him to the stone table outside to drink and eat while they talked. The 2 of them sat outside. A few dishes were placed on the table. Gu Xiang filled Fengjiu's cup with wine. Fengjiu took a sip of wine and chatted with the Honorable Lord. Try these dishes. Our cooks are pretty good. Chapter 23-27. Hearing this, the old man's mouth twitched and he turned his face away. Master was too honest. How could he tell her that he was here to find out the truth? But now, I've changed my mind. As the High Lord spoke, he took another sip of wine and looked at Fengjiu. You have good wine and good food here. How about this? I'll stay too. I won't go back. You can choose from the people in my city. If you like them, you can choose them. If you don't like them, you can chase them out. How about that? Fengjiu raised his eyebrows. Really? Do you think I'm joking with you? Really? How about it? He ate, completely ignoring the old man behind him who kept tugging at his robe. Seeing this, she smiled and poured another cup of wine. Do you know what the conditions are for me to stay here? What other conditions can there be? Isn't it just to serve you as my master? Although we're both immortal supremes and our strength is about the same, that's all there is in this place. So what if we're stronger? What's wrong with serving you as my master? But the prerequisite is that there's enough wine. As he spoke, he took another sip. He felt the old man behind him tugging at his robes. Suddenly, he slammed the wine pot down and turned around to glare at him. If you have something to say, just say it. Why are you tugging at my robes? Hearing this, the old man's face burned. He looked at Fengjiu awkwardly. Seeing that she only smiled and didn't say anything, he lowered his voice and persuaded, Master, you can't just acknowledge her as your master like this. Don't forget, she's a woman. You want to acknowledge her as your master just because of this wine. How can you do that? Pfft. The Lord sneered and glanced at the old man. Then, he looked at Fengjiu. Phoenix Master, why do you think I should stay and pledge my allegiance to you? Fengjiu took a sip of wine and smiled. You see the situation clearly and know that this is the best way to do it. She paused and looked at him. That's why I said that you're not ordinary. You're also very brave. He dared to come here just like this. It was enough to show his courage. If she had such a person under her command, he could help her manage the Tianyuan Palace in the future. Did you hear that? He looked at the old man. That's the reason why I decided to stay. In his opinion, this was all there was to it. His strength couldn't improve and he was trapped in this place. He was completely dumbfounded. If he had known that his master had come here with such an idea, he would have stopped his master from coming even if he was beaten to death. But now, it seemed that his master did not intend to go back. For a moment, he stood there in a daze. He felt that he could not keep up with his master's thoughts. If master acknowledged the Phoenix Master as his master, then who would his master be in the future? Gu Xiang, who was standing behind Fengjiu, was also a little dumbfounded. He didn't expect that the Lord would come to them and say that he wanted to stay and acknowledge their master as his master. If this matter was really settled, and the news spread, the other forces would be so shocked that they wouldn't be able to recover for a long time. They would start to feel restless. Chapter 23-28. Perhaps it was because of the other party's carefree character. When he said he wanted to stay, Fengjiu didn't say much. He just told Gu Xiang to arrange a place for him and at the same time, let the people below know. Some of my subordinates are pretty good. Do you want to find some time to take a look? He looked at Fengjiu and asked. There's no rush. She smiled and drank a cup of wine. As long as we spread the news that you've pledged your allegiance to me, I believe that those people will follow you even without me looking. Hearing this, Unfettered Supremacy laughed. That's right. The two of them chatted and drank until it was late into the night. Fengjiu said to Gu Xiang, take him to rest. Then, he got up and left. Hey, we're brothers from now on. He grinned and reached out to pat his shoulder. However, when he met Unfettered Supremacy's gaze, he couldn't help but turn his hand and pat his thigh. Let's go. I'll take you to rest. This person was stronger than him, so much so that he couldn't help but shrink back when he looked at him. As expected, strength was greater than everything. Just as Fengjiu said, when the news of Unfettered Supremacy's allegiance to her spread, the devil cultivators of the other forces panicked. The cultivators who were originally in Unfettered Supremacy's city also rushed over when they heard the news. Even though they knew that Fengjiu didn't accept devil cultivators and evil cultivators, there were still people who came with a glimmer of hope. Days passed in here. In the blink of an eye, several months had passed. Outside, in Hundred River City's Heavenly Pill building, the atmosphere was somewhat heavy. On this day, the people in charge of Heavenly Pill building gathered in the backyard to discuss matters. Among them, Mo Chen was also there. In addition to Mo Chen, there were also Ning Lang, Duan Yi, Luo Fei, and Song Ming, who had been trained by Fengjiu. Speaking of which, it's strange. Ever since Brother Guan received the letter and left, there has been no news of him for the past few months. However, recently, there has been news of him sneaking into the 4 major sects and killing several peak leaders. Now, the people of the 4 great sects are furious and have issued a kill order. At the same time, they have also sent people to guard our Heavenly Dan building. Once he returns, they will capture him and send him to the 1,000-ceasing peak to pay with his life for those peak masters. Now, we don't know where our master is. Young Master Mo Chen, what should we do about this? They looked at Mo Chen and asked for his opinion. Mo Chen glanced at them and said, what we should do now is to find Guan Shilin and ask him if he was the one who did all this. If not, where had he been all this time? As long as he can provide proof that he didn't do those things, the 4 great immortal sects won't do anything to him. Song Ming, who was next to him, nodded and said, I don't think he did it. He doesn't have the motive. Moreover, there is something wrong with the time he left. Hearing this, Duan Yi looked at them in agreement and said, that's right. At that time, he also told me that Fengjiu wasn't here now. He wanted to protect Heavenly Pill building on her behalf and didn't plan to go out for a while. However, when he suddenly received the letter that day, he left without saying anything and didn't return. I think this must have something to do with what happened these days. Chapter 23-29. The people in the backyard were discussing matters. In front of the Heavenly Pill house, Bai Qingqing was wiping the cabinets. Not far from her, Yang Xiao was staring at her. You've been here for a few months. Why do you need me to tell you what to do? For example, the corners of the cabinets must be wiped clean. Also, these places can't have dust. Yang Xiao crossed his arms and looked at the beautiful Bai Qingqing while pointing at her from the side. When she saw some of the customers staring at Bai Qingqing lecherously, she snorted and said, what are you guys looking at? Haven't you seen a woman before? Hey, Miss Xiao, this Miss Bai, before a man in embroidered clothes could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Yang Xiao, Her. You don't have to think about her. You've been staring at her every day and asking around. Don't you already know her background? Let me tell you, if you go overboard, you won't be able to enter the Heavenly Pill house in the future. I know, but I feel that letting Miss Bai be a maid by the ghost doctor's side is really. The man in embroidered clothes said with heartache. It was said that such a delicate and beautiful woman was the young miss of a large family. She was originally the proud daughter of the Heavenly Sun Immortal sect, one of the 4 great sects. Now, she was reduced to being a maid. This was too wasteful. It's really wasteful. Yang Xiao said and glanced at Bai Qingqing who was wiping the cabinets. She deserves it. She knew exactly how this woman came to be. A person like her deserved to suffer like this. Moreover, she felt that letting her be elder sister Feng's maidservant wasn't much of a hardship. If you want to buy something, go in. Don't keep walking around here. Yang Xiao said to the man in embroidered clothes. After glancing at Bai Qingqing, he turned and left. When the man in embroidered clothes saw that Yang Xiao had left, he went forward. And Bai. Before he could say anything, Bai Qingqing, who was wiping the cabinets, raised her head and glanced at the man in disgust. Get lost. She stared at the man, her beautiful face full of disgust. Being stared at by her, the man only felt ashamed and annoyed. He snorted coldly, flicked his sleeves, and walked out. At the same time, he left behind a sentence, and you call yourself the Bai family's young miss. You're just a woman with a pretty face. Why are you acting all high and mighty? Bai Qingqing pursed her lips as she watched the man leave. She did not say anything else and continued to wipe the items. That day, Fengjiu said that he would give her a month to settle the matter and report here. Even though she was unwilling, she still came in the end. She remembered that when her family members heard the news, they were all furious. There were even people who were jealous of her in the past who gloated and made sarcastic remarks. Her family members even went to the sect, hoping that the sect would intercede for her. But in the end, she still came to the heavenly pill house. Perhaps it was because everyone here knew how she came here, so the people here were not friendly to her. They were all very cold and indifferent to her. What shocked and surprised her the most was that everyone here was actually so outstanding and outstanding. Chapter 23:30. The moment she saw the pills in the heavenly pill dispensary, she finally understood why the alchemist of Heavenly Sun Immortal sect lost to Ghost Dr. Fengjiu. It was undeniable that she was very repulsed when she first came here. However, she had been here for a few months now. Although she did not know why she had not seen her master, Fengjiu, she knew that at this moment, she was no longer repulsed by such a master. In fact, she was even a little worried and nervous that she would always be despised and treated coldly. She just didn't know where her master had gone. Why hadn't she seen him yet? Fengjiu, who was trapped in the floating place, had handed over the matter to his subordinates while he cultivated in seclusion in the space. 2 months ago, she had studied how to break the formation and boundary of this place. However, she hadn't broken through to the Immortal Emperor realm yet, so she didn't break the formation and boundary first. Another point was that the devil cultivators and cultivators here hadn't been reorganized yet. If she suddenly opened the boundary and broke the formation and allowed them to escape, she was afraid that with their ruthless and bloodthirsty temperament and powerful combat strength, they would inevitably cause a bloody storm outside. Naturally, she didn't want to see such a scene and such consequences. However, what she didn't expect was that it took her several months to reach the peak of Immortal Venerable Realm after cultivating in the space from the Immortal Venerable Realm. On this day, she came out of the space and walked forward. Under a tree, she met Unfettered Venerable Lord, who was drinking wine. Changqing, why are you drinking again? How's the matter I asked you to handle going? Fengjiu slowly walked over and asked Unfettered Venerable Lord. Hearing Fengjiu calling his name, he turned his head to look at her. When he saw her chi, a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. His voice was somewhat strange and astonished. Master, you've advanced. There were restrictions in this place, so none of them were able to advance. How did she manage to advance? The chi that was faintly surging from her body was already at the complete Immortal Venerable Realm. Such chi was the strongest among everyone here. However, her chi wasn't like this a few months ago. He didn't know about the others, but he knew her original level. No matter how strong she was, she definitely hadn't reached the complete Immortal Venerable Realm. Hearing this, Fengjiu raised his eyebrows slightly. You can see it? She's only at the complete Immortal Venerable Realm. She hasn't stepped into the Immortal Emperor realm. Hearing this, his hand that was holding the wine jug couldn't help but tremble. You can still advance. Immortal Emperor. How's that? How are things going? She stopped beside him and asked again. Only then did Changqing come back to his senses. He glanced at her and said, rest assured, it's all been dealt with. Right now, this place is under our control. I'll have people guard the people below first. I'll tell you when you come out. Chapter 23:31. Oh. Then tell me, what's your solution? She asked with a smile. It's nothing much. I just told them that it's not impossible to live here. However, in order to be able to live in peace in the future, I'll let them sacrifice a wisp of their divine souls to Master. With this guarantee, they naturally won't attack them. Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded. This is indeed the simplest and most direct method. This method was feasible, but there was one thing he did not know. In the end, she would have to break this barrier and array and turn this floating land into her territory. At that time, the devil cultivator and the others would naturally not allow them to stay here. Then, if they couldn't stay here, they could only leave this place. As for being able to leave this place, she believed that this was something that these people, including Sang Qing, didn't expect, because they already felt that they could only live here for the rest of their lives. So the problem she was worried about was that in the future, when the barrier and array were opened, allowing them to leave this place, would the devil cultivators and evil cultivators, as well as those bloodthirsty and ferocious cultivators, become even worse after leaving this place? Would they become a bully? If she only wanted them to sacrifice a wisp of their divine souls, they naturally wouldn't dare to commit crimes where she was, but if they went to other places that she didn't know, it was hard to say. However, it was undeniable that if those devil cultivators sacrificed a wisp of their divine souls and pinched it in her hand, then those people would never attack her and become her enemies. Because, as long as she moved her divine sense, they would die in an instant. However, if they only sacrificed a wisp of their divine souls, would she be able to let them leave this place in the future? This point, she still had to think it over again. Sang Qing saw her pondering there, and his heart was slightly surprised, so he asked, "Is this method feasible?" Fengjiu glanced at him and meaningfully said, "I'm just a little worried." Hearing this, Sang Qing smiled, "What's there to be worried about? Anyway, it's just inside this place. Moreover, there were words first, so they certainly wouldn't dare to joke around with their lives. Then let's have someone arrange it. Tomorrow, let them line up one by one to come in." Fengjiu instructed, then turned and left. Seeing this, Sang Qing also stood up and walked forward unsteadily to arrange tomorrow's matters. The next morning, because of Fengjiu's instructions, his subordinates had already arranged everything. In the Phoenix City, the devil cultivators and evil cultivators, as well as those who weren't recruited, were already lining up and discussing in low voices. "I heard that the Phoenix Master has come out of seclusion. Today, as long as we take out a strand of our divine souls, they won't kill us because we're devil cultivators or evil cultivators. Actually, this is also good. I've been on tenterhooks for the past few months. Now that I've been trapped here forever, I still have to worry about being killed at any time. It's not easy to be vigilant at all times." "That's right. Even though we've already seen through life and death, who would wish to die if they could avoid it?" "That's right. Right now, I just want to offer a strand of my soul to the Phoenix Master and leave this place. In the future, I will definitely avoid her as far as I can from now on." Chapter 2332. Everyone looked over and saw a red figure, surrounded by the crowd, slowly walk over and sit down on the chair in front. After the red figure sat down, the cultivators of Phoenix City slowly took a step forward and respectfully saluted with one knee. "Greetings, Master." Seeing so many cultivators, so many powerhouses, so many arrogant and unruly cultivators full of killing intent, respectfully saluting the red figure on the main seat and calling her master, the visual impact and the shock to their hearts made the people watching from the back feel their hearts tremble. They were all evildoers who had been exiled here. They were all experts who could dominate a region outside. Wherever they went, people would look at them with reverence. But when they arrived here, they'd all submitted to the woman called Fengjiu, the Phoenix Master. They'd submitted to her because of her methods, her strength, and her courage, and they'd submitted to her wholeheartedly. "Everyone rise." Fengjiu waved her hand and a soft voice came out of her mouth. It carried the aura of spiritual power and clearly passed into the ears of the people around her. She raised her eyes to take a look. What entered her eyes was a sea of densely packed heads. The total number of people here added up to about 2,000. "Thank you, Master." Everyone responded and stood up. The teams retreated and quietly guarded the surroundings. Old Gu, who was standing beside Fengjiu, gestured, and two cultivators carried a table and placed it in front of Fengjiu. Then, she took out something and placed it on the table. Even Sang Qing, who was on the other side, found it strange. He didn't know what she was doing, let alone the others. "Sang Qing, let's begin," Fengjiu said. Hearing this, Changqing came to the side of the table and looked at the people standing in the city. He said, "Everyone knows why we are here today, so let's not delay any longer. Let's begin. Those with the strongest strength will go first." His voice passed into everyone's ears. When they heard this, the several immortal venerables standing at the front looked at each other and walked forward one by one to Fengjiu. "Phoenix Master, although unfettered Venerable Lord has already said those words, we still want to hear you say it again. Only then can we be at ease." A demon venerable said, his eyes falling on Fengjiu's exquisite face. Even though she was a peerless beauty that was rarely seen in the world, when they looked at her face and thought of her methods and courage, they could not bring themselves to have any thoughts of profaning her. Hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at the several immortal venerables in front of her and stood up. Her eyes swept across the people behind them, and a cold voice with a trace of spiritual power and pressure came out of her mouth. "As long as each of you offers a strand of your divine soul to me, and don't kill the innocent and do evil everywhere in the future, I naturally won't take your lives. However, if I find out that you've killed the innocent and do evil everywhere, Fengjiu will now put my words here, I will kill you no matter how far you are." Chapter 23:33. Perhaps it was due to the impact of her words, but no one made a sound. A devil cultivator at the immortal venerable level pursed his lips, glanced at Fengjiu, and offered up a strand of his spirit. Fengjiu glanced at him and kept that strand of his spirit. Then, she said to him, "Stretch out your right hand." The demonic cultivator was stunned. He only hesitated for a moment before reaching out with his right hand. Then, she dipped a brush in something red that looked like cinnabar and drew a flame pattern on the back of his hand. Within the pattern, she wrote a single word. "Old Gu, draw according to this pattern and write a number." Fengjiu said to Old Gu, who was beside her. Old Gu stepped forward to take a look and nodded. "Okay." Thus, Fengjiu asked someone to bring a chair for Old Gu to sit on and handed the brush to him. She watched from the side as she collected the spirits offered up by those people one by one. On this day, she busied herself until evening before she finished collecting everyone's spirits. Old Gu and Changqing took turns to draw the pattern and write the number. After they finished writing the pattern and number on the last person's right hand, they stopped. "Master, there's a total of 1,999 people." Old Gu reported the number of people. Fengjiu nodded and looked at those devil cultivators who were standing. At this moment, she said to them, "Since you've offered up a strand of your spirit to me, it's equivalent to your lives being in my hands. Then, I'll tell you a piece of news." Hearing this, everyone's hearts inexplicably jumped. Many people's expressions changed slightly as they thought to themselves, she wouldn't go back on her word, right? Could it be that she wants to cut off their spirits and kill them? Even the people of Phoenix City were slightly startled when they heard this. They were curious as to what news their master had to tell them after being in closed-door cultivation for so long. Fengjiu's lips curled up slightly when she saw that everyone's expressions had changed. A faint smile blossomed on her lips. Her brows were filled with a breathtaking confidence, and a clear and unhurried voice came out of her mouth clearly. "The news I want to tell you is that not long from now, I will open the spirit formation here and allow you to leave this isolated place." The moment this news came out, the entire Phoenix City suddenly went silent. Everyone was stunned. After being stunned for a long time, there was an explosion of cries of shock and disbelief. How is that possible? Did she say that she could break the barrier array here? Let us leave this isolated place. Ah! How could this be? I don't believe it. But, how I wish it was true. Will there really be a day when we leave? Can I really leave? This place is set up by 4 immortal sovereigns. There's also a restriction in the sky. No matter how powerful she is, she's only an immortal venerable expert. How can she save us when she was brought here? I don't believe it. No. It must be true. What the Phoenix Master said must be true. I believe in her. I believe in her. Yes, yes, yes. She's so powerful. She must be able to break the barrier and array here. She must be able to. Chapter 23:34. After telling them the news, Fengjiu turned and left. Seeing her leave, old Gu, Songqing, Gu Xiang, and the others looked at each other and involuntarily followed her. The others sent off the devil cultivators who were still in a state of excitement. Only the few immortal venerables were shocked after hearing Fengjiu's words. They didn't want to leave and wanted to ask for an explanation. However, the people of Phoenix City carried out the order to expel the devil cultivators from Phoenix City and closed the boundary. They could only guard outside Phoenix City and wait for an opportunity to ask what was going on. Would there really be a day when they could leave this place? Old Gu, Songqing, and the others followed her all the way until they arrived inside. After seeing her sit down in the courtyard, old Gu couldn't wait to ask, "Master, is what you said before true? Can we really leave this place?" His voice was filled with unconcealable excitement. Because of this excitement, his clasped hands faintly trembled. "Of course it's true." As she spoke, she looked at the two women from the Gu family who brought the dishes. She took out a wine gourd from her space and drank while eating. She said, "It's just that it'll take some time." Hearing this, several people looked at each other and revealed excited smiles. "As long as there's a day when we can leave, no matter how long it takes, we'll wait." They didn't ask any more questions. Instead, they got a confirmation from her mouth and absolutely believed that they could leave this place. In fact, it wasn't that this place wasn't good. However, the reason why it wasn't good was because this was a place that had been set up with restrictions. This was a place where there were only evil people and no ordinary people. This place didn't even have grains and other things that could be found in the small town outside. However, if there was a day when this place could be connected to the outside world, this place would become a different place. At least, they all knew that the spiritual energy in this place was very rich. It was also because of this that this place could be set up with such a large boundary, formation, and restriction. They left the courtyard with excitement in their hearts. When they arrived outside, the people of Phoenix City surrounded them one by one and asked. When they received confirmation from them, they heard a burst of cheers from the entire Phoenix City. Hearing the cheers in the city, Fengjiu, who was eating and drinking in the courtyard, couldn't help but smile. She raised her head to look at the sky. Her eyes moved slightly as she thought of her family and friends. He had not seen them for more than half a year. He wondered how they were doing. Is everything all right? Did Xianyuan Mose, who had gone overseas, send any news back? I really do miss them, and Grandpa and Father. I wonder if they're doing well over there. She murmured softly, thinking that time really passed quickly. If little Fengyi hadn't died when the Feng family was in trouble, how good would it be if the whole family was there now? Thinking of this, she sighed softly. When she left this place, she would find a chance to go back and see if they were doing well. Chapter 23:35. Another half a year passed. Fengjiu, who was sitting cross-legged in the space, was cultivating. On this day, his entire body's spiritual energy and profound force aura were surging. The spiritual energy in his body surged, and the aura of the green lotus in his dantian also overflowed and filled the entire space. That familiar feeling told her that she was about to break through. After cultivating for half a year, she was finally about to break through the immortal venerable rank and enter the immortal emperor rank. She immediately took out the pills she had prepared for breaking through the immortal venerable rank and entering the immortal emperor rank. This time, she must break through to the peak of the immortal emperor rank. Only then would her strength be enough to shock the 4 immortal emperors. Moreover, the 4 immortal emperors had been immortal emperors for many years. Their current strength was probably even higher than that. Only by breaking through to the immortal emperor rank would she be able to catch their attention. As the aura in the space changed, the heaven and earth in the space also changed. While she was breaking through in the space, the people outside did not know that it would not be long before they could all leave this place. In Phoenix City, Old Man Gu and the others were busy in an orderly manner. Some were assigned to hunt fierce beasts, some were stationed in the city, and some were patrolling outside. Since Feng Jiu told them that she could take them out of this place half a year ago, the smell of blood here seemed to have lessened a lot. There were very few people fighting and robbing for little things. Those with high cultivation also didn't easily kill those with low cultivation. To them, nothing was important now. Being able to leave this place was the most important thing. Therefore, they had been waiting for that day to come. Many people often gathered outside Phoenix City's gates and waited here. If there was any news, they would be the first to know. However, Phoenix City's gates were often closed and would only open when someone entered or left. Even if they wanted to know, without the permission of the people in charge of Phoenix City, the news would not reach their ears. This continued until 12 signal flares were released in the sky above Phoenix City. The people outside Phoenix City rushed back after seeing the signal flare. In the next few days, they only saw people rushing back to Phoenix City. They wanted to find out what had happened. However, no one paid them any attention. What do you think is going on? Why did the people in Phoenix City send out 12 signals in a row to gather the people outside? I'm thinking, could it be that the Phoenix Lord wants to open the boundary array here? That's why she gathered everyone back. Really? It's only been half a year since she said those words. In less than half a year, she already knows how to break the boundary array. What else could it be? Now that the four sides are in harmony, there have been very few people fighting and killing in the past half a year. Apart from the matter of breaking the boundary formation, I don't think there should be anything else that could make her use 12 signal flares to summon everyone back. That. We can finally leave this place. Chapter 23:36. Inside the Phoenix City, everyone was standing side by side. Each and every one of them was looking at the magnificent red figure that was slowly walking out. Everyone's gaze fell on her, and the respect and worship in their eyes were so obvious. As her figure moved, their gazes also moved. Fengjiu slowly walked out and stopped in front of everyone. Looking at the figure standing respectfully in the city, her voice, which contained spiritual power, clearly entered everyone's ears. I called you all back because I have something to tell you. Fengjiu looked at them and slowly said, tomorrow, I'm going to open the boundary array here, but you all know that this place is a boundary array set up by 4 immortal emperors. Once the boundary array is broken and the restriction here is lifted, it will inevitably alarm the 4 immortal emperors. I'm telling you today because I want you all to be prepared. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up, and they said sonorously, Master, don't worry. We're always ready. Even if we have to fight, we won't be afraid. Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded and said, tomorrow, we'll see the situation and listen to my orders. If we can avoid fighting, then it's best not to. Otherwise, fighting with immortal emperors will definitely result in heavy casualties. Today, you all have a good rest and wait for tomorrow to come. Yes. Everyone responded in a deep voice, and it was difficult to conceal the excitement in their voices. It was estimated that no one would be able to calm down and rest today. Everyone, disperse. She waved her hand. After everyone dispersed, she looked at Sangqing and said, go out and tell the demonic cultivators outside to not act recklessly tomorrow. I got it. Sangqing responded and nodded his head before walking out. Fengjiu handed over some matters to old Gu and the others before returning to the courtyard. She was going to have a good sleep today and wait for tomorrow to come. The demonic cultivators outside had already rushed to the Phoenix City after seeing the 12 signal flares. Now that they heard Unfettered Sovereign's words, they were all extremely excited. We understand. Please inform the Phoenix Master that we will act according to her instructions tomorrow. We won't act recklessly. The few immortal venerables replied immediately. Yes. After Tsang Qin complied, he had them inform the devil cultivators below before turning around and returning to Phoenix City. On this day, it could be said that outside of Fengjiu, everyone was so excited that they couldn't even close their eyes to rest. Early in the morning, everyone stared at the sky above Feng City. Fengjiu, on the other hand, only woke up around 7 in the morning. After washing her face and rinsing her mouth, she directly soared into the sky. The people below, whether they were inside or outside Phoenix City, only saw a red figure soar into the sky. Her dazzling red clothes fluttered in the air. It was extremely beautiful. Fengjiu's body was filled with spiritual energy that could be seen with the naked eye. When the immortal emperor's aura was released from her body, the people below couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air and couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Chapter 23:37. Could it be that she has always been an immortal emperor? Is she just suppressing her strength? Maybe she has always been an immortal emperor. Otherwise, how could she make unfettered reverence submit to her so easily? How could she seize the Phoenix City and kill an immortal venerable expert by herself? Only an immortal emperor expert can do that. No wonder she said she could break the formation here. She has the strength of an immortal emperor, an ancient contracted beast, and all kinds of abilities. No wonder she said she could break the formation here and let us leave this place. While the crowd was discussing, Fengjiu, who was in mid-air, formed a complicated and ancient seal with both hands. Along with the release of her immortal emperor Qi, she pointed the seal in her hand towards the sky. An ancient pressure accompanied by the strength of an immortal emperor and her natal heavenly fire shot out. With a whoosh, the seal shot towards the sky. Boom! Boom! In the middle of the day, the sky suddenly changed color. The sound of thunder rumbled unceasingly. Bolts of lightning appeared in the sky and struck the ground with a "kacha" sound. The people below were frightened and cried out in alarm. They all looked at the scene in the sky in shock. Boom! Fengjiu, who was standing in mid-air, looked up and saw the dark clouds above her head. The sound of thunder came from above her head, and the bolts of lightning brushed past her body. A powerful pressure pressed down on her like Mount Tai. It was as if it was angry that she was trying to break the barrier here. If she hadn't reached the peak of the immortal emperor realm, she wouldn't have been able to withstand such a powerful pressure alone. However, even if the 4 celestial emperors' auras were to press down on her, she would still be able to withstand it. Today, even if the 4 great immortal emperors appeared, she was determined to break the spirit formation and restriction here. Boom! Bang! Thunderclaps continued to ring out while wild gales rose like the roar of a ferocious beast. It was as though they wanted to blow Fengjiu away. However, the light that protected her tightly like a protective barrier around her caused the wind blades to be unable to touch her, and the lightning bolts to be unable to harm her in the slightest. Break for me. A cold shout came from the sky, and a flame suddenly sprang up. When the flame sprang up, it quickly connected with the ancient and complicated mark that she had launched earlier. Accompanied by a powerful pressure and the impact of spiritual energy, in that instant, there was a cracking sound coming from the horizon, followed by the sound of an explosion. Bang! When the loud explosion sounded out, 4 powerful auras of spirit energy spread out and flew to the 4 corners of the sky before disappearing. When the crowd below saw the scene in the sky, they were stunned for a moment before they burst out in excited voices. It's broken! It's broken! He has broken the restriction. Because of the visual impact of that scene, all the blood in their bodies rushed to their minds, and they felt their blood boiling. When they saw the restriction being broken, they knew that as long as they could break the last 2 barriers and the grand formation, they would be able to leave this place. Chapter 23:38. A strange look flashed across the eyes of the four of them. In just an instant, their spirits left their bodies and flew towards the floating place despite being in closed-door cultivation. After Feng Jiu broke through the first restriction, she sensed that the pressure in the sky had vanished. She immediately soared into the sky with the intention of breaking through the grand formation. However, right at this moment, four dignified voices that were accompanied by fierce auras resounded from the sky. "Who are you?" The voices were dignified and contained a sharp aura. A powerful pressure came from the four voices, causing her mind to tremble and a trace of blood to flow out from her mouth. When the four voices came out at the same time, the people below all coughed up blood and knelt down. They couldn't even straighten their bodies. At this moment, they realized that the strength of the four immortal emperors was far beyond their imagination. Perhaps, after so many years, the strength of the four immortal emperors had surpassed the immortal emperor level. Wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth, Feng Jiu looked at the four figures in the sky. Her eyes flashed and she said in a neither haughty nor humble tone, "Feng Jiu greets the four emperors." The four emperors' wise and sharp gazes fell on Feng Jiu. Even though she was dressed as a man, with their cultivation, they could tell at a glance that she was a woman. Moreover, she was a genius with a profound spirit body. Their gazes swept across her body. They saw her beautiful appearance and noble temperament. There was no aura of darkness around her, nor was there any murderous aura around her. On the contrary, there was a faint holy light around her body. The four emperors were slightly surprised. "Feng Jiu, why did you enter the land of exile? Why did you break the boundary formation that we four emperors set up?" One of them asked with a dignified and intimidating voice. His gaze was fixed on Feng Jiu's clear eyes as if he wanted to see through her. This was the land of exile. Most of the people who came here were evil people. Even if one or two were occasionally sent here, they should not be people like her. Moreover, this place was jointly set up by the four imperial emperors. A little girl like her was actually able to break through their restrictions. This truly shocked them and made them feel that it was inconceivable. They couldn't help but guess her origins. "I was sent here by a gate of darkness opened by a devil cultivator. I've been here for almost a year. After breaking the boundary formation of the four emperors, I naturally wanted to leave this place," she said slowly as she looked at the four figures. Her soul had left her body. What kind of cultivation was needed to do this? As she had guessed, the four of them were no longer immortal emperors. When they heard that she had entered through the gate of darkness, their eyes flashed. So that was the case. They did not expect that there would be someone among the devil cultivators who could open the teleportation formation in the land of darkness. After a slight pause, one of them opened his mouth and said, "This is the place where evil people are imprisoned. If the barrier here is broken, they will definitely return to the continent to do evil. Since you have mistakenly entered this place, we can send you away." Hearing this, the people below were shocked. They were kneeling on the ground and could not stand up. They could not even raise their heads to look at the sky. Thus, at this moment, they could not help but feel despair. Chapter 23:39. At this moment, they couldn't help but feel the despair of being abandoned. They felt that the Phoenix Master wouldn't take them away because the four emperors didn't plan on letting them leave at all. However, although the people in Phoenix City heard her words, they didn't panic. Instead, they waited quietly. They believed that their master would definitely take them away because they knew that their master wasn't the kind of person who only cared about themselves. Feng Jiu, who was standing in the air, shook her head when she heard the four emperors' words. When the four emperors saw that she actually shook her head, they couldn't help but be surprised. "You don't want to leave?" Just now, she said that she opened the barrier to leave. Why did she shake her head when they wanted to send her away? "No." Feng Jiu said as she looked at the four emperors, "I want to leave, but I also want everyone here to leave. No matter if it's devil cultivators or cultivators, I've promised them that I'll let them leave. Moreover, I'm also planning to make this floating land my territory. Hearing this, the devil cultivators below couldn't help but inwardly suck in a breath of cold air. This Phoenix Master's guts were really too big. She actually dared to say such words to the four emperors. Wasn't she afraid that the four emperors would kill her? Moreover, she actually said that she wanted to make this place her territory and make it hers. Would the four emperors be willing? If this place didn't have those restrictions and barriers, it would be a good place with rich spiritual energy. Would the four emperors be willing to give such a place to her? Only the people in Phoenix City couldn't help but smile when they heard Fengjiu's words. This was their master. Domineering enough. When the four emperors heard Fengjiu's words, they couldn't help but look at each other with a strange expression. Not only do you want to take everyone here away, but you also want us to give this place to you. It's not a gift, it's compensation. As Fengjiu spoke, he looked at the four of them and said, I was trapped in the spirit formation set up by the four monarchs for no reason at all for a year. Don't tell me that the four monarchs don't think that they should compensate me. Hearing this, the four of them were stunned. They stared at Fengjiu for a long time, not knowing what they were thinking. After a long time, one of them slowly said, it's not impossible to give it to you, but if you take the devil cultivators and those people who are full of killing intent out with you, how can you guarantee that they won't cause harm everywhere after they leave? Hearing this, Fengjiu curled his lips into a smile. Their souls are in my hands. As long as I have a thought, they will die without a doubt. Moreover, other than devil cultivators and heretic cultivators, most of them have pledged their allegiance to me and become my subordinates. With my ability, I believe that I can control them well. The four of them looked at each other and nodded slightly. Since that's the case, we'll do as you wish. You should remember this favor as well. The four of them looked at her meaningfully. Remember this favor? Fengjiu's eyes flashed. What did the four monarchs mean? Could it be that they wanted to ask her to repay this favor? As monarchs who guarded the four directions, what favor did they need from her? If you want to help someone, you should help them to the end. You don't need to waste your energy to break this spirit formation. We'll help you remove it, but you must remember today's words. Don't let those devil cultivators leave here and cause harm everywhere. Chapter 2340. After the four monarchs removed the spirit formation, they disappeared into the sky. Following their departure, the powerful oppressive might that enveloped the sky also disappeared. Only then did the crowd below exhale a sigh of relief and stand up one after another. Have the barrier and formation been removed? Are they really removed? Someone murmured, his face full of disbelief. I'll go up and take a look. A cultivator could not hold back the excitement in his heart. Ignoring his injuries, he immediately gathered his chi and flew up into the sky. At this moment, Fengjiu was looking at the surroundings of the floating land. Her line of sight, which was originally covered by white clouds, had begun to appear in front of her eyes. Beyond the blue sky and white clouds, she could see some forests and some towns below. As expected. She said softly, a smile appeared on her beautiful face. This place wasn't anywhere else. It was still in the upper reaches of the continent. However, this floating place was in the sky above the clouds. There were barriers and formations set up around it. The people below couldn't see this place and couldn't enter. The people inside couldn't get out and couldn't see the outside either. Ha 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 ha. It's really been removed. It's really been removed. When the demonic cultivators who rose into the sky saw the scene outside, they were all extremely excited and laughed out loud. However, they did not forget who had given them the chance to see the outside world again. They did not forget who had given them the chance to leave this place. As a result, the 2,000 demonic cultivators, regardless of whether they were in the air or in the forest below, all bowed respectfully and gratefully to Fengjiu. Thank you, Phoenix Master. Excited voices mixed with unconcealable joy came from the mouths of the demonic cultivators. Their gazes all landed on the dazzling red figure. Looking at her beautiful face, it was as if they wanted to remember her face forever in their hearts. Fengjiu glanced at them, and a voice that contained pressure slowly came out of her mouth. "All right, since the barrier and formation have been removed, you can all leave as well. However, when you're outside, remember what I said." "Yes. We'll take our leave." Everyone responded in unison. Some directly soared into the sky, some laughed loudly while riding on their swords, and some took out their magic tools and flew out. Not long after, those people all left, leaving only the people in Phoenix City. At this moment, Fengjiu set up a new spirit formation, isolating the entire floating area. What was different was that she had left a spirit formation entrance in the spirit formation. After the barrier was set up, she returned to the Phoenix City from midair. Looking at everyone, she slowly said, "Now that all the devil cultivators have left, I will set up a new barrier here. In the future, no one can enter without permission. And here, I need a few people to guard it. Who among you is willing to stay and guard it?" "Master, we are all willing to stay and guard." One by one, the Phoenix City cultivators said. "Yes, Master. As long as you give the order, we are willing to stay and guard." Seeing this, Fengjiu nodded and smiled. "How about this? You guys have been trapped here for many years, so it's a bit unreasonable to just let you guys stay here. Just take turns to guard this place." Chapter 23:41. Old Gu, who was at the side, heard this and said, "Master, how about this? Our Gu clan has already been destroyed outside. Now that the barrier here has been broken, if we need anything, we can go out and buy some things. So there's no need for others to take turns guarding this place. Just leave it to my Gu clan to guard." Hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at old Gu and nodded. "All right, then I'll leave this place to you. You can choose a place to settle down here." "Thank you, Master." Everyone from the Gu clan bowed respectfully and said. Fengjiu looked at everyone and said, "Today, the barrier has been broken. You can go wherever you want. As long as I have a use for you in the future, once the signal is sent, no matter where you are or what you're doing, you have to come to the place where I gather you." Hearing this, everyone was slightly startled. "Master, you want us to go back on our own?" Although they also wanted to go outside, they didn't expect that their master would let them do whatever they wanted. Moreover, he didn't restrict their movements. Is this strange? Fengjiu glanced at everyone and said, "Don't tell me I have to feed such a large group of people like you. You won't starve to death outside. You don't have to follow me all the time. I said that as long as I need you, you can just appear when I need you." Hearing this, everyone was stunned. After a long while, someone asked, "Master, if we want to find you, where should we go to find you?" After staying here for so long, they didn't know what to do if they suddenly went out. "You can find me in 100 River City's Heavenly Pill building," Fengjiu said and waved to everyone. "Everyone, disperse. Those who want to leave can leave now." Seeing this, everyone looked at each other but didn't move. Instead, they hesitated and asked, "Master, can we also stay here? Settle down here?" The barrier here was also gone, so they could leave whenever they wanted. If they could settle down here, it would be better than going outside. Fengjiu looked at them strangely. "You don't want to leave this place?" Everyone grinned and said, "Master, the restriction here has been lifted. If we need anything, we can go down to the town and walk around. So it doesn't matter if we leave or not. Besides, if we are all here, if Master wants to find us, we will be able to come at your call. Isn't that better?" Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled. All right, as you wish. However, it's fine if you want to stay here. However, I still plan to reorganize this place. You can start making arrangements when the time comes. I'll get old Gu to take care of the details." "All right." Everyone immediately laughed excitedly. Someone said, "Master, we haven't been to the town for a long time. Let's go down and take a look today. We'll buy some things to celebrate. Wait a moment. Fengjiu glanced at them and waved her hand. Several boxes appeared in front of her. There are some gold, silver, and jewels inside. Divide them among yourselves and keep some with you. You are my subordinates and also the guardians of this floating land. I still need you to contribute to the transformation here. Chapter 23:42. Seeing this, Fengjiu said to old Gu, then put these away. In the future, if you want to build some shops and courtyards here, the money will come from here. Yes. Old Gu responded and put away the 4 chests of treasures. Those who want to go out can go out. Disperse. Fengjiu waved his hand, then looked at Sangqing and asked, what about you? What are your plans? I'm also going out for a walk and see if my enemy is still alive. Sangqing narrowed his eyes and stared at the sky as he spoke. Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded, then be careful. Yes, he replied. After cupping his hands in salute, he left as well. Old Gu, come with me. She said to old Gu and the others and led them to the courtyard. Master, are you also leaving? In the courtyard, old Gu looked at Fengjiu and asked. Yes, I've been trapped here for a year. I don't know how the situation is over at the Heavenly Pill building. So I'm going back. Today, I'm going to explain some things to you and give each of you something. Hearing this, old Gu and the others were slightly startled. Their gazes fell on her. Master, please instruct us. Fengjiu looked at them deeply. After explaining some things to them in detail, she gave each of them a medicinal pill that could help them advance. Finally, she said, your strength is only 1 step away. I'll help you and let you enter the immortal venerable level. In the future, it will be more convenient to do things here. Everyone looked at the medicinal pills in their hands and were a little stunned. Among them, Gu Xiang said in a daze, but master, with our strength, ordinary medicinal pills won't have any effect on us. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled slightly. You also said that it's an ordinary medicinal pill, but mine is not an ordinary medicinal pill. Take it. Find a time and let old Gu try it first. The others will come one by one. If there's anything you can't deal with, then come to the Heavenly Pill building in 100 River City to find me. Yes. They responded and carefully put away the medicinal pills. After bowing, they left the courtyard. Fengjiu was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, she looked at the sky above her. Since this place was floating, it could naturally be moved. She thought that it would be better to move this floating place to the clouds in the sky of 100 River City. This way, it would be more convenient to go in and out. Her heart moved, she also moved. She lifted it up into the air and used her powerful spiritual power to move it in the direction of 100 Rivers City. 2 days later, in the depths of the clouds above 100 River City, there was a floating place that no one could see. No one knew that this place was rich in spirit chi and was suitable for cultivation. After informing the people in Phoenix City, Fengjiu left. She stood at the edge of the barrier of the floating land and looked down. After passing through the clouds, she could only see the city that was as small as an ant. Thus, she took out the Aurora teleportation scroll from the space. With a thought, she disappeared from the boundary and headed toward the Feng Manor in 100 River City. Chapter 23:43. Open the door. Hurry and open the door. Do you think you'll be fine if you hide inside? Come out. Come out and explain everything to us. If you don't come out, we're going to break down the door. Hearing the words outside, Leng Shuang could not help but step forward. However, his shoulder was pressed down by someone to the side. Don't be impulsive. Du Fan pressed down on his shoulder and spoke calmly. He looked outside and said, these people come here every day to make a ruckus. Even if we go out, it won't help. It will only make things worse. Are we just going to let them do as they please? Leng Shuang asked coldly. He turned around and glanced at Du Fan. You should know that we can't solve the problem at the moment. Du Fan sighed and said, I just hope that they can find Guan Shilin as soon as possible and bring him back for questioning. Otherwise, these days will continue. Hearing this, Leng Shuang pursed his lips. Even the phone guards and Hui Lang can't find his whereabouts. Who else can? Du Fan was silent for a while. He did not know what to say. He only said, right now, all the powers are targeting us because of this matter. If the Heavenly Pill building did not have Mo Chen's protection, it would not have been able to withstand the pressure from all sides and would have closed down. Right now, Master is not here. The only thing we can do is wait. Hearing him mention Master, Leng Shuang's eyes filled with worry. We haven't heard from Master for a year. We don't know where he is now. Is he safe? Just as they said this, they suddenly saw Lao Bai, who had been guarding the Feng Manor the entire time, suddenly run over. Like the wind, he flew all the way to the inner courtyard. Faintly, the two could hear him speak excitedly. Master! It's Master! I smell Master's scent. It must be Master who has returned. Hearing this, the two were startled. They instinctively followed him to the backyard. When they reached the backyard, their figures suddenly stopped. They stared blankly at the red figure that had appeared in the courtyard. Seeing his master whom he had not seen for a year, Leng Shuang's eyes could not help but fill with tears. Master! Roar! A year ago, when Fengzhou left, the little thing was still a baby tiger. Now, it had grown strong. At this time, it was letting out a cry and rubbing against Fengzhou's body. From time to time, it stuck out its tongue to lick Fengzhou to show its excitement. All right, stop licking. Your saliva is all over my face, Fengzhou said with a look of disdain, but his lips curled up into a smile. She rubbed the head of the white tiger that had already grown strong, and said, Good boy, go play at the side. As soon as she finished speaking, Lao Bai came over. Master, you've been missing for a year. We all miss you. Lao Bai also wanted to kiss her, but was directly avoided by her. He could not help but reveal an aggrieved and resentful gaze as he looked at her. Master, you are biased. All right, stop fooling around. Fengzhou patted Lao Bai's head before looking at Leng Shuang and Du Fan. Master, you've finally returned. When Du Fan saw her, he let out a sigh of relief. He had finally seen his master return safely. No matter what, being able to see his master return safely was enough for him to feel at ease. Yes, I've returned. Chapter 2344. Master. Leng Shuang wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes and said, Leng Shuang is very happy to finally see Master return safely. Master, it's good that you're back, it's good that you're back. Master, if you didn't come back, things would have been troublesome. Lao Bai interrupted from the side. Hearing this, Fengzhou raised his eyebrows and asked, What kind of trouble? Lao Bai was about to speak when he heard Du Fan say, Master, you just came back. Do you want to rest first? Those things can't be explained in a short time. Why don't I ask someone to prepare some food for you and we can talk after you rest? There's no need for that. What happened while I was away? You can tell me. She walked to the table in the courtyard and sat down, looking as if she wanted to hear more about it. Seeing this, Du Fan said, It's like this. When Duan Yi came to the Heavenly Pill building and told us about Master, everyone was busy trying to think of a way. Later, young Master Mo Chen said that it was a disaster, but also a blessing. He told us not to worry. Since young Master Mo Chen said so, we thought that before Master came back, we would guard the Heavenly Pill building and take care of the mansion. It was very peaceful during that time and nothing happened. Until one day, Guan Shilin received a letter and said that he would go out. But he never came back. Even the Phoenix Guards we sent out couldn't find any news about him. A few months later, a piece of news came out. He paused slightly. Go on. As Fengjiu spoke, he took out a wine gourd from the space and drank some wine. His eyes were deep, as if he was thinking about something. The news came that for some reason, Guan Shilin attacked the people of the four immortal sects and killed people with high status in their sections. In addition, he also attacked people from some big families. This caused public anger and everyone said that they wanted to suppress him. He glanced at Master and saw that her expression was the same. He couldn't tell what she was thinking, so he continued, we all felt that something was wrong. Guan Shilin wouldn't do such a thing. However, we've been looking for him for nearly a year and haven't found his whereabouts. But we kept hearing that he was killing people everywhere. Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes moved slightly and asked, where is Mo Chen now? He's been at the Heavenly Pill building recently because many forces took the opportunity to attack on us. Fortunately, we have young Master Mo Chen's protection, otherwise those people would have attacked the Heavenly Pill building long ago. How unexpected. She took a sip of wine and stood up. She gently shook the wine gourd in her hand and said, I thought that no one would dare to touch the Heavenly Pill building now. I didn't expect that after I left for a year, everything would be in chaos. I'm ashamed. Du Fan lowered his head. I've been hearing people knocking on the door and shouting outside since just now. Who are those people? She asked and took another sip of wine. They're people from a few small forces. They also said that some of them were killed by Guan Shilin. Recently, whenever someone was killed, they all claimed that it was Guan Shilin who said that. They either came to ask for compensation or to settle accounts with Guan Shilin, Du Fan said with his head lowered. You're just going to let them do as they please. Fengjiu glanced at Du Fan. We didn't find Guan Shilin. If we attack them, I'm afraid that things will get worse, so. He knew that it wasn't appropriate to deal with this matter, but there was no other way. Chapter 23:45. Seeing this, Du Fan opened his mouth and quietly said, Master, there is another reason why they dared to come here. Fengjiu, who was in front, heard this and stopped walking. She turned around and glanced at him, speak. It's because news came from outside that Master was killed outside. Adding on the fact that Master has not shown his face for a year, they dare to be so fearless. Hearing this, Fengjiu slowly walked forward. Her voice was neither fast nor slow, fearless. I actually want to see just how fearless they are. She walked forward with Leng Shuang and Du Fan following behind her. The closer they got to the front, the louder the sounds of the door slapping became. Arriving at the door, she stopped and gestured to Du Fan. Du Fan walked forward and opened the door. When the door was opened, the eyes of the people outside lit up. Just as they were about to charge in, they saw a red figure slowly walk out. When they clearly saw the person's appearance, they were given a fright. Ghost Dr. Fengjiu. They suddenly retreated a few steps, and each of their faces turned pale. Wasn't it said that Ghost Dr. Fengjiu had been killed outside? Why did he come out here? Fengjiu walked out with her hands behind her back. Her clear eyes were filled with coldness as she glanced at them. She then looked around and her gaze fell on the large door that had been slapped. Her cold voice carried a chilling aura as it came out of her mouth. Guards! With her clear shout, 20 guards came out of the foam manor. The 20 people looked at Fengjiu with shining eyes and saluted without any prior agreement. Greetings, Master. The 30 or so people surrounding the foam manor's entrance saw this and could not help but be shocked. They retreated even further. At the same time, they stared vigilantly at Fengjiu's group. One of them asked, What do you want to do? What? Fengjiu curled her lips, revealing a cold and evil smile. However, This smile did not reach her eyes. It would have been fine if she did not smile, but this smile made the hearts of the 30-plus people sink, faintly feeling uneasy. Compensation. When the 30 or so people heard the word compensation, they couldn't help but be startled. Compensation? Compensate for what? Forgive them for not being able to react. Compensate for what? Fengjiu sneered and glanced at them. Could it be that you believe that my foam manners gates are something that anyone can come and knock on as they please? Who can kick you just because they want to? Hearing this, everyone finally understood why she had glanced at the door when she came out. It turned out that she had this idea. Ghost Doctor, Guan Shilin killed a member of our family. How are we going to settle this debt? Since you're here, why don't you tell us how we're going to settle this matter? One of them shouted in a deep voice, and stood out in an imposing manner. He killed one of your people. Fengjiu's cold gaze swept over them and landed on that person, saying, if he really did kill one of your people, I will naturally take care of this matter. Right now, his whereabouts are unknown, and the truth of the matter is still unknown. What sort of explanation do you want me to give you? She lightly snorted, I'll remember this debt for now. Right now, it would be best for you to settle the matter of compensating the gate. Otherwise, not a single one of you should think of leaving alive today. Chapter 2346. It's just a door. How much would it cost if I made you a new one? One of them said nonchalantly. Hearing this, Fengjiu smirked, it's not much. You 3 families will pay me 1 million gold coins each. Hearing this, those people gasped, you're robbing us. 1 million gold coins each. Even if your door is inlaid with gold, it doesn't have to be that expensive. You're all wrong. My 1 million gold coins really aren't enough to overcharge you. Fengjiu walked slowly and glanced at them, this door isn't worth much, but I, Fengjiu, am worth a lot of money. You've already offended me by kicking and slamming my door. Do you know what kind of price you have to pay to offend a strong person? As soon as she finished speaking, a powerful aura of suppression instantly swept out from her body and enveloped the 30 over people. The 30 over people fell to their knees with a thud. Their faces were drained of all blood and were filled with fear. Offending a strong person? I can take your lives. Her cold voice was sharp. She stopped in her tracks and glanced at them, so, this 1 million gold coins isn't just for this door. It's for your lives. If you think it's too much and can't bear to pay, then that's fine. I just need to give the order and I can let you bleed on the spot. If you die, then I'll forget about this 1 million gold coins. Her voice drifted out softly, but it was like a cold December wind that blew into their hearts. They couldn't help but shiver. At this moment, they were filled with regret. If they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have come here to kick and cause a ruckus. Now that Fengjiu had appeared, they had gone for wool and come home shorn. 1 million gold coins was a huge sum of money to them. Du Fan, collect the money from them. If they don't hand it over to you before sunset, then there's no need for these people to live. Fengjiu looked at Du Fan and instructed. Yes, Du Fan replied. Leng Shuang, come with me, she said and walked forward. Leng Shuang followed her quietly. Arriving at the Heavenly Dan building, when Leng Hua and the others saw Fengjiu, they all came out to greet him in surprise, Master. In the attic, the fire phoenix transformed into a little bird and flew onto Fengjiu's shoulder. Master, you're back. I'm back, she said softly and looked at everyone with a smile. I've made all of you worry this year. Master, it's fine as long as you're back. Seeing you come back safely, we're relieved. Yes, mistress, it's good that you're back. Everyone surrounded her with smiles on their faces. At this moment, a white figure walked out from a corner on the first floor. When she saw Fengjiu surrounded by people, she couldn't help but lower her head. After hesitating for a moment, she walked over. Bai Qingqing greets master. She bowed respectfully to Fengjiu. When he saw her, Fengjiu's eyes moved slightly. He glanced at her and said, "Raise your head." "Yes," she replied and raised her head to look at him. Fengjiu only took one look and knew that Bai Qingqing had restrained her sharpness. She no longer had the arrogance she had when he first met her in the Sky Sun sect. She was much more pleasing to the eye. Chapter 2347. "Yes," Bai Qingqing replied, then left. "Mo Chen is in the backyard?" she asked, looking at Leng Hua. Mo Chen is in the backyard. As Leng Hua spoke, he saw his master walking towards the backyard. He glanced at his sister, then followed his master to the backyard. Mo Chen had already heard the commotion in front of him, so he knew that she had returned. Thus, he took out some wine, poured 2 cups, and waited until he saw the red figure slowly walking towards him. When he saw the aura on her body, his eyes flickered, and he asked curiously, "What's your current level of strength?" Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled slightly, the peak of the immortal emperor realm. Leng Hua and Leng Shuang, who were behind him, were surprised when they heard this. Their master was already at the peak of the immortal emperor realm. It had only been a year, but she had already broken through to the peak of the immortal emperor realm. It was indeed unbelievable. No wonder Mo Chen said that this was a disaster for her, but also a blessing for her. The higher one's cultivation level, the harder it was to advance. There were almost no immortal emperors in the upper reaches. However, she had only been missing for a year, and her strength had already broken through to the peak of the immortal emperor realm. How could this not be surprising? In that case, I have to congratulate you. Mo Chen chuckled, then gestured to her, "Sit." Fengjiu sat down at the table, then said to Leng Hua behind him, "Get someone to prepare 2 side dishes." "Yes," Leng Hua replied, then left. "I think they've told you about your brother, right?" Mo Chen drank his wine, then looked at her and asked. "Yes, I found out as soon as I came back," she replied, then took a sip of her wine. "Then what do you think? What do you plan to do?" He gently swirled the wine in his hand, looking at the slightly swaying wine as he asked softly. "What else can I do? Right now, the most important thing is to find him. Moreover, I don't think my brother would do such a thing. Besides, he has no reason to do so." Mo Chen nodded slightly and said, "That's right. That's why I'm thinking that this person might be an imposter. He's using his name to make enemies everywhere. His goal is to make all the forces rise up against you. There's also another possibility. If this person isn't an imposter and is really Guan Shilin, then it's very likely that he's being controlled by someone." Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed. "That's about the same as what I thought. I think that might be the case too." She paused for a moment before continuing, "If that person is an imposter, then my brother should be in danger and unable to escape. Otherwise, it is impossible for him not to come back after hearing what is happening outside. Right now, I am more worried about his safety. Unfortunately, we still haven't found out who did it. We can't do anything about it." Mo Chen sighed softly and said, "We've mobilized all the people we can. Even the people from the black market are helping to investigate, but there's still no news." "You don't have any suspects or forces?" Fengjiu glanced at him. "After investigating for so long, you don't have any leads?" Hearing this, Mo Chen chuckled. "I knew you would ask this." Chapter 2348. Fengjiu's hand paused. He seemed to have thought of something and continued drinking. Not long after, waiter Yang and Bai Qingqing came in with the dishes. "Big sister Feng, I heard from them that you're back as soon as I arrived. Where have you been this year?" Waiter Yang asked with a smile after serving the dishes. Fengjiu looked at her and was slightly surprised. He didn't answer, but asked, "Waiter, why have you lost so much weight? The originally plump little girl had now become very slender. Her originally pretty face had become even more distinct after losing weight. Her pair of bright big eyes seemed to be able to speak. They were watery and overflowing with spiritual energy, making people's eyes light up at a glance. Hearing Fengzhou's words, Waiter Yang smiled embarrassedly. I didn't eat that much. Also, I practiced a set of martial arts every morning and night. That's why I slowly lost weight. Yes, it doesn't matter if you're fat or thin, as long as you're healthy, Fengzhou said with a smile. I went to a place to cultivate this year. Didn't I just come back? I didn't expect so many things to happen in the year that I wasn't around. Big sister Feng, don't worry too much. Big brother Guan will definitely be found, Waiter Yang comforted. Yes. She nodded with a smile. Then we'll go out first. After saying that, she left with Bai Qingqing. Mo Chen and Fengzhou chatted in the courtyard. Outside, because of Fengzhou's return, the news gradually spread. 2 days later. What? He's back. When the Temple of Darkness Lord, Yixiran, heard the news that Fengzhou had returned to the Heavenly Pill House, he stood up from behind his desk with a whoosh. His expression was filled with surprise. He's really back. Is the news true? At this moment, there was a trace of nervousness in his heart, a trace of nervousness and excitement that even he himself did not know why. The elder saw that his master's expression was pleasantly surprised and was slightly startled. He then nodded his head. Yes, master. Outside, there are rumors that Ghost Dr. Fengzhou has returned. I heard that at the time, 3 small families went to the Feng Manor to cause trouble. When the Feng Manor's gates opened, Ghost Dr. Fengzhou came out wearing red clothes. As soon as she appeared, she easily dealt with those small families who were causing trouble. Furthermore, those small families had to pay a compensation of 1 million gold coins each. Because of this, the news of her return spread quickly. This old servant immediately rushed over to report to master as soon as I received the news. Good, very good. You did well. A joyful smile appeared on his face. Since she's back, then this highness will go and meet her. As he spoke, he picked up the tea on the table and drank. Hearing this, the elder hesitated for a moment. Seeing his master's face filled with anticipation and excitement, he quietly asked, Master, have you fallen in love with that ghost Dr. Fengzhou? He had lived for a long time and was able to see through people and things. His master's attitude towards that ghost Dr. Fengzhou seemed to have changed ever since the main hall was destroyed. Speaking of which, it was strange. Their Temple of Darkness main hall had been destroyed by Fengzhou. At that time, his master had even been injured. Could it be that he did not hate her to the core? Why was he captivated by her instead? Pfft. Chapter 2349. Hearing his master's words, the elder was startled. Oh. That means, master doesn't like that ghost Dr. Fengzhou. That's impossible. He said resolutely and decisively. The elder clearly sighed in relief. That's good, that's good. This old servant thought that master knew it was the ghost doctor who saved you back then, so you turned your gratitude into adoration. When Yixiran heard this, he felt a few black lines cross his forehead. What kind of messy logic was this? Master, actually, it's right that you didn't like her. If you really did like the ghost doctor, then it's destined to be a one-sided love. The ghost doctor won't like you. The elder started nagging again, ignoring Yixiran's ashen face as he said meaningfully, we also know quite a bit about ghost Dr. Fengzhou. She has many outstanding men by her side, especially that fiancé of hers called Xianyuan Mose. He's definitely a ruthless character. He paused, then continued, moreover, it's said that although the two of them are often separated, their relationship is very deep. Even if master wants to forcefully stick a foot in, you won't be able to. Therefore, before master's heart is moved, this old servant wants to advise master to avoid walking down a path of no return. Yi Xiuran's face completely darkened. He coldly swept a glance at the chattering elder. What do you mean by walking down a path of no return? Didn't I just say it? I don't like that woman. Moreover, am I, your master, that bad? What do you mean she won't like me? What kind of thing is Shenyuan Mo's? No matter how outstanding he is, can he be more outstanding than me? The elder's lips moved, wanting to say something, but he was afraid of hurting Yi Xiuran. In the end, he only sighed. In my heart, master is the most formidable and outstanding. No one can compare to master. However, he had to admit that at Fengzhou's side, whether it was that Shenyuan Mo's, that Tianji elder's disciple Mo Chen, her foster brother Guan Shilin, or the 4 handsome youths from the 4 great immortal sects, each and every one of them was extraordinary. Speaking of which, it was strange. What exactly was going on? Those people gathered around her one by one, protecting her and protecting her. Thinking of this, he thought of a piece of news that had recently spread. He hesitated for a moment, looked at his master, and said, "Master, it said that this ghost Dr. Fengzhou is the star of the Phoenix. What does master think of this matter?" Hearing this, Yi Xiuran frowned and fell silent for a moment. Feng Xing is a person of great fortune. The people by her side will more or less receive some benefits. Moreover, it's best not to make an enemy of such a person. Hearing this, the old man secretly glanced at his master and thought to himself, why do I feel that master's last sentence is what he wants to say? Don't make enemies. So that's what friends are. Master, the ghost doctor still doesn't know that you're the Lord of the Temple of Darkness, right? The old man suddenly asked. Yi Xiuran's expression shifted before he smiled. I don't know. So what? He patted his robes and said, all right, I'll leave the rest to you. I should also go to the Heavenly Pill building to take a look. He had waited for her for a year. She was finally back. Master, master. The old man shouted, only to see him stride out, disappearing from sight in a short while. Chapter 2350. Another 2 days passed. Early in the morning, after hearing that Fengzhou had returned, Han Yuanzi hurried to the Heavenly Pill building. As soon as he entered, he pulled Leng Hua aside and asked, I heard that Fengzhou is back. Where is she? I have something urgent to discuss with her. Senior, my master is refining pills in the alchemy room. If there's anything urgent, we'll have to wait for her to come out. Why don't you sit here and rest for a while? Have a cup of tea first. I'll take you to her as soon as she comes out. Leng Hua smiled warmly and led him to a table for guests to rest. Hearing this, Han Yuanzi frowned. After sitting down, he said, didn't I hear that she's only been back for a few days? Why is she working so hard to refine pills? I know that the Heavenly Pill building has a lot of things going on recently. How can she stay in the alchemy room? She's been dealing with a lot of things since she came back. She started refining pills yesterday evening and didn't come out of the alchemy room all night. I think she'll come out today. Leng Hua said and asked someone to serve tea to Han Yuanzi. Senior Han Yuanzi, please have some tea. Bai Qingqing served tea and placed it on the table in front of Han Yuanzi. Just as she was about to leave, she heard his surprised voice. You're that Bai from the Heavenly Sun sect. What's your name again? Han Yuanzi knocked his head and thought for a while, but he couldn't remember the name. Senior, I'm Bai Qingqing. She lowered her eyes and said respectfully. Oh, you're called Bai Qingqing. Come, raise your head and let this old man take a look. Han Yuanzi said with a smile. Hearing this, Bai Qingqing hesitated for a moment. At this moment, she heard Leng Hua's voice. Didn't you hear what Senior Han Yuanzi said? Raise your head and let him take a look. Leng Hua's voice was indifferent. It was very different from his usual gentle voice. He knew that Bai Qingqing had once made things difficult for his master and even wanted to scheme against him. How could he be nice to her? Yes. Bai Qingqing's face was slightly pale. Only then did she raise her head. However, at this moment, he only felt humiliated and embarrassed. She was originally a proud daughter of the heavens, insufferably arrogant. But now, she had fallen to such a state. She had to raise her head when she was told to do so. Only she, who had personally experienced this kind of humiliation, could understand how embarrassing it was. She does look pretty good and is worthy of the name Qingqing. However, she is still a far cry from little Feng. Han Yuan sipped his tea as he commented on Bai Qingqing. She calmed herself down and said in a calm tone, Qingqing is only a servant by master's side. Naturally, she cannot be compared to master. Let this old man tell you. Don't put down your pride as the Bai family's young lady and the Sky Sun sex prodigy. It's your fortune to be able to stay by Feng girl's side. She'll never mistreat anyone who catches her eye. Work hard. Hearing this, Bai Qingqing couldn't help but glance at Han Yuan. Her heart warmed and she smiled. Yes, thank you for your advice, senior. I will definitely not disappoint master. Hearing this, Leng Hua couldn't help but glance at her. Seeing that she didn't seem to be faking it, his eyes flashed and he said, You may leave. Yes. She bowed and left. Chapter 23:51. Seeing this, Leng Hua sat down and waited with him. At the same time, he told him some things about his master. At this time, there were no guests in the Heavenly Pill building. Only the people in the building were walking around. In addition, they were sitting in a corner, so no one else could hear their conversation. This wait lasted all the way until evening. Fengjiu walked out of the alchemy room and pulled up her sleeves, smelling the strong smell of medicine. She saw Ling Shuang walk up and say, Master, Senior Han Yuan is here. He's been waiting for you since morning. He said he has something to talk to you about. Fengjiu, who was patting her sleeves, paused when she heard this. That old man is here. Go invite him in. Also, call Leng Hua over. She ordered as she patted her sleeves, dispersing some of the smell of medicine. She pulled up her sleeves and sniffed. There was still a smell of medicine. When he heard Leng Shuang announce that Fengjiu had finished refining the pills, Han Yuan immediately stood up and said to Leng Hua, Look, I've been waiting for an entire day. I have an urgent matter. As he spoke, he quickly walked to the backyard. Seeing this, Leng Hua smiled. Just as he was about to leave, he was stopped by his sister. Master wants you to come over. Leng Shuang looked at him and said. Leng Hua nodded. Okay, then let's go together. Then he walked to the backyard with his sister. In the backyard, as soon as Han Yuanzi saw Feng Jiu sitting at the table, he walked over and sat down casually. Leng Hua has told me about what happened to you in the past year. It hasn't been easy. To be able to come out of that kind of place, you really are Feng Jiu. Hearing this, Feng Jiu smiled. You've told me. Then I don't need to tell you again. She picked up her tea and took a sip to moisten her throat. She asked, Why are you looking for me? Oh right, look at my memory. I really have an urgent matter to discuss with you. As Han Yuan spoke, he looked at Feng Jiu's calm face and changed the topic. Let me ask you first. How do you plan to deal with your elder brother, Guan Shilin? This matter has caused quite a stir. Everyone knows about it. She smiled and said, I've already sent people to look for him. You don't have to worry too much about him. Is that so? Can you leave now? The old man asked. Hearing this, Feng Jiu, who was sipping tea, she looked at him. Something happened to Zhe Junue. I just found out about it. Then, I heard that you're back, so I came to look for you. The old man sighed. Didn't you say that you're lacking some herbs? He's been out searching for them for the past year. He heard that there was a hidden clan that he needed some herbs, so he asked around and went to that hidden clan. He paused for a moment before continuing. Fortunately, I was careful at that time and left him 1,000 miles sound transmission talisman. But in the end, he must have been in an emergency, so he only had time to tell me roughly where he was. He said that the place was a little strange, so I thought of you. You want me to go with you? Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and asked. Chapter 2352. That area was indeed very strange. He wanted to bring Fengjiu along. If anything happened, at least there would be someone to discuss it with. Fengjiu pondered for a moment. She took out the teleportation scroll and asked, "Where is it?" The moment she took it out, she heard the old man's voice. "You don't have to look. It's not on it." Han Yuanzi said, "That place is isolated from the rest of the world. Even if you want to find it, it'll take some effort. The teleportation scroll doesn't have that place either." Hearing this, she paused for a moment and asked, "Then how long will it take to get there from here?" The main reason was that she had only returned for a few days and there was still no news of her brother. She was more worried that she would be gone for too long or that they would not be able to contact her for some reason. Han Yuanzi thought for a moment and said, "If we speed up the journey, it should take about a month." About a month, she thought for a moment and then nodded, "All right. I'll go with you, but you'll have to wait for a while. I can only leave after I've delegated some matters." She did not think that she would have to leave again so soon. However, she could not leave Zhua Juanyue's matter alone. "All right, go do your things. This old man won't mind waiting for you for a while." Han Yuanzi waved his hand and gestured for her to go about her business. Fengjiu then got up and instructed someone to take care of Han Yuanzi. She then went to the loft and called everyone over to give them detailed instructions. She also had someone leave a message for Mo Chen. When the sky darkened, Fengjiu took a bath and went to Han Yuanzi's place. "Old man, let's go." Feng 9, who was dressed in green, walked out. She was still dressed as a man. The green and white robe on her body was less unrestrained and flamboyant than the red robe. Instead, she looked more handsome and elegant, like an elegant young master, which was very pleasing to the eye. Han Yuanzi looked at her in surprise. "Are you planning to travel through the night with this old man?" "Let's go. The sooner I finish, the sooner I can come back," Fengjiu said as he walked out. Seeing this, he followed. Just as the two of them were about to leave, the fire phoenix flapped her wings and flew over. "Master, aren't you bringing me along? You stay here and guard this place. If I'm not here, you can help look after it." Fengjiu tapped Fire Phoenix's head and smiled. "All right. Be careful, I'll wait for you here." The Fire Phoenix could only say so. However, compared to a year ago, it was more at ease now that its master was at the peak of the Immortal Emperor realm. Thus, Fengjiu and Han Yuan directly left through the back door. It could be said that other than the people in charge of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, no one outside knew that she had just returned and left with Han Yuan. However, things were just so coincidental. About 2 hours after the two of them left, Ishiran also arrived at the Heavenly Pill building. He knocked on the door of the Heavenly Pill building. The person who opened the door was Du Fan. "Sir, what's the matter?" Du Fan looked at the man in front of him and sized him up. "I'm looking for your master," Ishiran said as he looked inside. As Ishiran spoke, he looked inside and saw that there were only a few people who were sorting out the medicinal herbs walking around, but he didn't see any familiar figures. "Sir, you are." Chapter 2353. When Du Fan saw the man walk in, he closed the door and followed in. "My master went out. Sir, you can come find her later." Ishiran paused when he heard this and turned to glance at Du Fan. Went out. Didn't she just come back? Why did she go out again? She had some matters to attend to, so she went out, Du Fan said as his gaze landed on Yi Shiran. He had heard of Yi Shiran from Duan Yi, so he should be on good terms with master. Where did she go? When will she be back? He asked after finding a place to sit down. She'll be back in about a month. As for where, I have no comment. Pour me a cup of tea, Yi Shiran said to Du Fan. Du Fan had someone serve tea. Seeing Yi Shiran sitting there, frowning and shaking his head from time to time, Du Fan found it strange and asked, "Young Master Yi, are you looking for my master for something?" "I just happened to be passing by and came in to see her." "What could be the matter?" Yi Shiran said lazily. He held the teacup in one hand and gently scraped the tea lid with the other. It was unknown what he was thinking. "Oh right, where's that Duan Yi? I heard that her big brother caused quite a bit of trouble recently, and this mess hasn't been cleaned up yet. Can she be at ease to go out?" Yi Shiran asked as he sipped his tea. "Young Master Yi, thank you for your concern. My master left after handing over the matter." Du Fan smiled politely. "Since she's not here, I'll stay and wait for her. A month should pass very quickly." Du Fan was startled. "Young Master Yi wants to stay here. Can't. Didn't you say she'd be gone for a month at most? Don't tell me you want me to go back." Yi Shiran glanced at him and sat still. Du Fan smiled. "That's not it. It's just that our heavenly pill dispensary has been facing quite a bit of trouble recently. I'm worried that we won't be able to greet young Master Yi if you stay here." "It's fine. I don't need you to greet me." Du Fan's expression shifted. He glanced at Yi Shiran, who had no intention of leaving, and said, "Young Master Yi, please sit for a moment. I'll be right back." With that, he bowed and left. Arriving at the back, the 8 Phoenix Guard captains asked, "Who is that person?" "Yi Shiran." Du Fan glanced at them. "Do you still remember the person Duan Yi mentioned?" "That's him." Hearing this, they looked at each other. "That Yi Shiran that Duan Yi spoke of, whose strength isn't below his?" Du Fan nodded. "That's right. He said he came to look for master. But you know that master just left. He said he wants to stay here and wait for master to come back. I want to discuss this with you and Leng Hua. Is there anything wrong with this person? We haven't investigated his background. Wouldn't it be inappropriate to let him stay?" one of them asked. "That's what I'm worried about," Du Fan said. Leng Hua walked over with something in his hand. When he heard their conversation, he asked, "What are you worried about?" Chapter 2354. Stay at the Foam Residence. Du Fan looked at Leng Hua in surprise. Leng Hua nodded. "That's right. It's fine to have him stay at the Foam Residence. There are many guest rooms there, and there are many people secretly keeping watch. Also, there aren't many important things there, so it should be fine to have him stay there." They looked at each other and finally said, "That's fine. Then we'll do as you say. Then I'll bring him to the Foam Residence." As Du Fan spoke, he walked to the tea table in front of Yi Shiran and smiled. "Young Master Yi, it's already late. Let me take you to rest." Yi Shiran glanced at him and nodded slightly before leaving with him. He only stopped when they arrived at the Foam Residence. "This is where Fengjiu lives. As soon as master returns, she'll return here to stay," Du Fan said and knocked on the door. When an elder opened the door, he said to Yi Shiran, "Young Master Yi, please. Then which family does the Ling residence we saw on the way here belong to?" he asked Du Fan. Du Fan smiled brightly. "Young Master Yi, you can wait for my master to return and personally ask her the questions you want to know." As he spoke, he paused and continued, "The Foam Manor also has its own rules. There are some places that guests cannot go. In a bit, I will mention them to young Master Yi. In a few days, Duan Yi and the others will return. When that time comes, this place will be lively. When Yi Shiran saw this, he tactfully didn't ask any further and followed him inside. On the other side, Feng Jiu and Hunyuan Zi, who had been hurrying through the night, flew on their flying tools. They silently swept across the night sky and headed into the distance. Several days later, "Old man, is this really the right direction?" Feng Jiu frowned as he looked at the endless forest in the mountains. No matter how he looked, this place didn't look like a place where people lived. "Don't worry. It can't be wrong, I've been here a long time ago. Otherwise, how would I know that this place is strange?" Hunyuan took a sip of wine and glanced down. "It's still early. It'll take at least 2 or 3 days to arrive." As soon as he finished speaking, his stomach rumbled. Hearing this, Hunyuan smiled awkwardly. "I haven't eaten much meat in the past 2 days." Hearing this, Feng Jiu looked down and said, "There should be some game down there. Let's go down and rest for a while. Let's hunt some game for dinner." "Sure." His eyes lit up and he smiled. "I haven't tasted your cooking in a long time. You go get some firewood, I'll hunt some game." When they reached the bottom, Feng Jiu said to the old man. The two of them divided the work, and the location was under a big tree. "All right." The old man responded. He picked up some trees in the surrounding area and said to Feng Jiu, "Don't wander too far from here. Just hunt some rabbits or whatever to eat. Don't be too picky." Feng Jiu raised his brows and glanced at the old man before heading into the forest. Was he worried that she would encounter danger in a place like this? The old man was really getting worse and worse. Walking into the forest, she felt that this dense forest was very humid. The air was very humid, and there was little sunlight. The surroundings were very quiet, and there weren't even the sounds of animals. She couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Looking from above, this dense forest was very lush. There was naturally no lack of game in such a place. However, after coming down, she discovered that there seemed to be something different. Chapter 23:55. Her gaze fell on the little baby who was wriggling about in the weeds in front of her in astonishment. How could there be a baby in this place? She felt strange and walked forward. Sure enough, it was a baby. However, this baby did not open his eyes, but his hands and feet were wriggling, and his mouth was making ah 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 sounds. Looking at the naked baby wriggling about, she released her divine sense and scanned the surroundings, but found that there was no one else around except for her. However, just as she was about to withdraw her divine sense, a light breeze blew over, and she smelled a faint scent of blood. The scent of blood? She raised her eyebrows and looked at a certain place in the forest, then looked at the baby at her feet. Only then did she bend down and pick up the baby in the weeds. When she picked up the baby, her hands were wet. Looking down, she saw that there was a bleeding wound on the baby's back. "He's injured." She was slightly surprised. Just now, she only smelled the scent of blood in the distance, but she did not smell the blood on the baby. Suppressing the strange feeling in her heart, she freed one hand and was about to take out a robe from her space to wrap the baby, but just as she freed her hand, the baby in her arms suddenly opened his eyes. When those eyes opened, they were not the eyes of a baby at all, but the eyes of a beast. Hiss! Suddenly, the baby in her arms changed, and jumped out of her arms like a demonic beast. Its mouth opened wide, revealing sharp fangs. Its claw-like hands grabbed her shoulder with one hand and her clothes with the other. Its bloodthirsty mouth suddenly moved forward and bit down on her neck. The sudden change made Feng Jiu unable to avoid it. She could only stretch out her free hand and fiercely slap the demonic beast's head. A fierce aura flashed through her palm, and with a bang, the demonic beast's head flew out in an instant, but its body was still tightly attached to her body and was still moving. She swung her hand, trying to fling the demonic beast's body away. However, when the spiritual power in her body surged, a powerful aura bounced it away, and at the same time, the demonic beast's grip on her shoulder was torn open, revealing her bones. Frowning slightly, she let out a muffled groan. Her eyes were cold as she looked at the head and body of the demonic beast that was still moving. With a flip of her hand, 2 flames flew out, instantly burning the demonic beast's head and body clean. Foam lass. The old man, who had picked up the branches but did not see Fengjiu return, was a little worried, so he kept looking in the direction Fengjiu went. After walking a distance, he suddenly heard movement in front of him. Fengjiu's hand hummed weakly. Her green robe was stained with blood, and she was trembling with fear. Her arm was trembling unconsciously because of the deep wound. She glanced down and heard the cries of a baby in front of her, which seemed to have been woken up. Her eyes flashed and she walked forward. Foam lass. Hun Yuanzi's figure flew over, and in a few breaths, he had arrived at Fengjiu's side. When he saw her frightening wound, he could not help but gasp. Chapter 2356. He hadn't seen her for a while, but she was covered in blood. There were also several wounds from her shoulder to her arm that were so deep that her bones could be seen. What was going on? I met a monster beast just now. Fengjiu continued to walk forward, following the direction of the baby's cry. I was caught off guard and got hurt. Then you should treat the wound on your hand first. Where are you going? The old man said. He couldn't help but worry when he saw that most of her green clothes were dyed red. There's a child crying up ahead. She stopped and looked at the worried Hun Yuanzi with a smile. Don't worry about me. This injury is nothing. You call this a little injury? He glared at her and asked, where's the child? How can there be a child in this deep forest? Before he could finish his sentence, he heard the sound of a child crying. He couldn't help but be stunned. There really is a child? Let's go ahead and take a look. As she spoke, she walked forward with the old man. After about 100 meters, they first saw some corpses and broken limbs on the ground. Those corpses seemed to have been hollowed out, leaving only skin and bones. That cruel scene made the 2 of them involuntarily raise their hearts. Especially Fengjiu. When the monster beast pounced on her, its original appearance seemed to be right in front of her. If she hadn't acted fast enough, she would probably have ended up like the corpses in front of her. This is too cruel. The old man muttered as he opened his eyes. The old man's eyes widened as he murmured. He looked at the corpses and saw that they were all the same. Their internal organs had been dug out, and their blood seemed to have been sucked dry. Even he had never seen such a scene before. In just an instant, Hun Yuanzi and the old man looked at each other in unison and looked forward. The 2 of them also released their divine senses and probed ahead, but they found that it seemed to be blocked by something. Strange, my divine senses can't detect what's ahead. Hun Yuanzi was surprised. When he heard the baby's cry, he said to Fengjiu, the baby's cry is coming from up ahead. However, there might be a problem up ahead. Fengjiu covered her injured hand with her uninjured hand. She activated the green lotus chi in her body and released a little green light through her palm, which quickly healed the deep wound from her shoulder to her arm. The wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. Hun Yuanzi's attention was focused on the front, so he didn't notice that Fengjiu's hand was glowing. Therefore, no one knew that the deep wound was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye, that I was injured by a monster beast with the ability to transform into a baby. Fengjiu's voice came out of her mouth. She still covered her arm with one hand and looked at Hun Yuanzi. The human-shaped baby that the demonic beast transformed into doesn't have any demonic aura. Even I can't see through it. Be careful. Are you saying that your injury was caused by Master Hunyuan pointed at the wound on her shoulder, but when he finished speaking and his gaze landed on the wound, he suddenly fell silent. His eyes widened in disbelief, and his mouth was agape as he looked at the smooth, snowy shoulder in shock. Just now, there were clearly a few scratches on her arm, but now, the wound was gone. Chapter 23:57. As for the wound on her arm, it healed bit by bit as her hand moved, until it was as smooth as snow. This. He pointed at her healed arm incoherently, unable to say anything for a long time. Fengjiu glanced at her arm and revealed a faint smile. I said it's only a small wound, but it still hurts. She could heal her wound, but the pain of being injured was something she had to bear. Let's go. Let's see what's going on up ahead. She walked forward. Hunyuanzi returned to his senses and stared at her back for a long time before quickly following after her. When the two of them came to the front, they found that there were more than a dozen demonic beasts in front of them. These demonic beasts had no fur on their bodies, and their bodies were smooth. Unlike the ominous beasts, they walked on 2 feet like humans. The only difference was that these demonic beasts exuded demonic chi from head to toe. Their eyes were long and slender like a cat's eyes. Their noses were black, and their mouths were wide open like snakes swallowing animals. Those sharp fangs gave them a bloodthirsty and ferocious aura. And in the area surrounded by these demon heads, there was actually a small baby protected by a barrier. The baby was crying and waving its hands and feet. Outside the barrier, there were also 2 demon beasts trying to break open the barrier with their teeth. Seeing this scene, the two were slightly surprised. They didn't expect that there would be such a child in this place. Moreover, the child was protected by the barrier even though the adult was dead. Hunyuanzi's eyes glowed with wisdom as he stared at the demonic beasts and said, "This old man has traveled extensively for so many years, but this is the first time I've seen demonic beasts. TSK, so this is what demonic beasts look like. 17, I'll take 10, you take 7. Fengjiu said. With a wave of her hand, the azure-edged sword appeared in her hand. The azure-edged sword hasn't been stained with blood for a year. Although they're demonic beasts, we can make do with them. As soon as she finished speaking, her figure flashed and she instantly flew out. Ever since she was captured a year ago and her brother and Imo Chen brought the azure-edged sword back, it had never been with her. Only when she returned did Imo Chen return the azure-edged sword that he had kept for a year. It had to be said that the red armillary sash was a pretty good treasure, but it was much weaker than the azure-edged sword. Although the dagger was more flexible, it was still more suitable for close combat. In most battles, the azure-edged sword was the most suitable weapon. Sharp sword chi shot out from the tip of the sword. With a flash of cold light, one of the demonic beasts that was charging forward was cut in half. A sharp hissing sound was heard as blood splattered out, splattering all over the ground. By. Ah! Some of the demonic beasts let out hissing sounds, while others let out strange cries. Their speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, they were in front of her. If she was an ordinary cultivator, she would have died under the fierce and fast attacks of these demonic beasts. Chapter 23:58. The two of them used less than 30 minutes to kill the 17 demon beasts one by one. Looking at the blood on the ground, the two of them walked over to the small barrier. When they got closer, the two of them saw that the child was not on the ground, but inside a small bowl-like magic artifact. What kind of magic tool is this? I can't tell what material it is made of. Fengjiu looked at the thing under the child in the barrier. Break the barrier first and take it out to see, the old man said and motioned for her to do it. Seeing this, Fengjiu didn't do it. Instead, she stared at the child and asked, "Old man, do you think there should be no problem with this child? He shouldn't be transformed from a demon beast, right?" Hearing this, Hun Yuanzi couldn't help but laugh. He glanced at Fengjiu and saw her conflicted face. He said with a smile, "What? Once bitten by a snake, 10 years shy of straw rope? That's not it. It's just that if you pick him up again and turn him into a demon beast, it won't feel good." Fengjiu said with a frown, but she still reached out and formed a seal. Spirit power surged and broke the barrier. Perhaps because he cried for too long, the baby's cries sounded a little hoarse. Fengjiu looked at the dancing child. He was only wearing a small dudu and the blanket wrapped outside had been kicked away. Looking at the pink and chubby child, she bent down and picked him up. It was soft and heavy. She held it with one hand and lifted a corner of the dudu. Glancing at it, she said with a smile, "It's a boy." Saying this, she looked at Hun Yuanzi who was looking at the magic tool and asked helplessly, "Why do I feel like I'm more fated with these little babies and demon beasts? I picked one up as soon as I went out." "Anyway, you haven't picked up a baby yet. It's fate that you met this one. Don't talk about raising those contracted beasts. Even if you raise a few more babies, you can still afford it. With this child's current state, I guess you'll have to raise him in the future." Hun Yuanzi said and looked at the baby who stopped crying in Fengjiu's arms. He joked, "Look, this child stopped crying in your arms. It's like he knows you're his mother." Hearing this, Fengjiu was speechless. "I'm not married yet." "So what if you're not married? Can't you adopt a child if you're not married? If you like him, you can keep him by your side. It's not a big problem." The old man said disapprovingly. He handed the blanket and the item to Fengjiu and said, "In my opinion, this child's origin is probably not ordinary. The corpses we saw earlier were probably not this child's parents." "What?" She raised her eyebrows and was a little surprised. "This is an immortal weapon, not an ordinary magic tool. There are patterns on it, but even I can't tell where it came from. However, this immortal weapon has no owner. It's just a small bed for this child to sleep on. It's obvious that this child's parents are not ordinary." Chapter 23:59. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu's mouth twitched. She glanced at Hun Yuanzi speechlessly. "Old man, it's a waste that you're not a storyteller. You don't believe me?" The old man glared at her. "I've lived for a long time and have encountered many more things than you. This old man can always guess correctly." Yes, 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 you're amazing." Fengjiu was too lazy to say more. She only said, "Aren't you looking for something to eat? I'll take the child back to the tree. You can look around for game. Be careful and don't go too far." With that, she took the child's things from the old man and put them into the space. Then, she carried the child and walked back. This little heartless girl, leaving this old man here like this. Hun Yuanzi cursed in a low voice. He walked in the other direction of the forest, preparing to catch 2 rabbits or 2 snakes for a meal. As for Fengjiu, she carried the child back to the tree where the branches were piled. Seeing that there was no one around, she carried the child and flashed into the space. She placed the child to the side of the space and took off her clothes to wipe her body. Then, she changed into a green robe. When she saw the child she had placed to the side crying again, she walked forward and picked him up. Okay, don't cry. Good boy, don't cry." She gently coaxed him. However, the child kept crying. She thought for a moment and her gaze fell on the child's stomach. She was a little startled. Could it be that he's hungry? What should I do? She flashed out of the space and walked around the tree with the child in her arms. She was a little worried. The things that adults could eat were not things that this child, who was only a few months old, could eat. There was nothing that babies could eat in this place. I've got it. She took out a bottle of nutrient solution from the space and smiled. She gently tapped the mouth of the baby in her arms. You're lucky to have met me. You even have nutrient solution to drink. She found a place to sit down, holding the child in one hand and feeding him the nutrient solution with the other. Feng Jiu couldn't help but chuckle when she saw the little guy opening his mouth like a starving chick and swallowing the nutrient solution. Little fellow, you're even more adorable than the little white tiger. After a while, the old man came back with 2 spirit chickens in his hands. He said to Feng Jiu, I wanted to catch 2 rabbits or 2 snakes, but I didn't see any. Fortunately, I caught 2 spirit chickens. I thought that the meat would be very tender when roasted. Come, I'll leave them to you. He twisted the necks of the 2 chickens and threw them to the ground. Then, he walked towards the Feng Jiu. He wanted to carry the baby in her arms so that she could roast the chickens. Wash your hands with water. Feng Jiu stared at his hands. This child is only a few months old. His body is weak. You've just caught a chicken, so you have to wash it before you can hold him. Okay. You're so troublesome. The old man took out his water bag and poured water to wash his hands. After wiping them clean, he looked at Feng Jiu. Is this okay? Seeing this, Feng Jiu handed the baby in her arms to him. Then you can rest here with him. There's a stream not far ahead. I'll clean up these 2 chickens before I come back. Okay, go ahead. Chapter 2360. Feng Jiu, who had just taken a few steps, heard the sound and paused. She turned around and looked in surprise at the old man, who had an ugly expression on his face. When she smelled the stench, the corner of her mouth twitched. Did he poop? She looked at the child blinking innocently in the old man's arms and smiled. She stepped back and said, you deal with it yourself. I'll go take care of the 2 chickens first. With that, she quickly walked away, leaving the old man standing there stiffly. The old man recovered after a long while. Looking at the child who was still kicking his feet, he glared and said, This old man has lived for so many years, and no one has ever dared to poop, humph. He could not say that word. When he thought of the child's filth on his body, he felt his scalp tingle. Immediately, he carried the child to the place where Feng Jiu was. Feng Jiu, who had deftly taken care of the 2 spirit chickens, saw the old man carrying the child over. She smiled and said jokingly, Old man, this child is so good to you. You just carried him and he's already made you like this. I guess this is the first time you've seen this, right? Hurry up and roast those 2 chickens. Later, you can take the child yourself. As the old man spoke, he carried the child with one hand and took off his clothes with the other. He placed the child on the clean clothes on the ground. Feng Jiu smiled when she saw this. Okay, you wash first. I'll come over later. As she spoke, she smiled and walked back. She lit the fire and roasted the 2 chickens on the rack. She sprinkled some seasoning. Not long after, she saw the old man carrying the child in a dudu over. I'll give him back to you. The old man handed the child to Feng Jiu and sat down by the fire. He took out a cup of wine and took a sip. What a little ancestor. This old man has lived for so long and has never served anyone. Feng Jiu took the child and smiled. When this child grows up, let him serve you. Hearing this, the old man looked at her with slight surprise. From what you're saying, do you really intend to keep this child? Didn't you want me to raise him as a son? Feng Jiu raised his eyebrows and looked at him mockingly. The old man glared at him. I told you to keep it, and you're really keeping it. You're an unmarried young lady, yet you're following the little guy around and calling him mother. This isn't too good, right? There's nothing bad about it. When we go back, I'll find a nanny for this little thing and ask Ling Shuang and the others to help take care of it. I'll just play with this little guy when I'm free. I don't think I'll have anything to do most of the time. She had already made plans. Since they didn't know the origins of this child, nor did they know where this child's relatives were, then they would raise him first. Once it grew up, she would let him look for it himself. Moreover, this little fellow was very cute and had been saved by her, so there was nothing wrong with keeping it by her side. Hunyuan looked at her for a while and finally said, "Since you've said so, then let's keep it. However, isn't it a little inappropriate for us to have a child by our side right now? That can't be helped." She took out an old robe from her space and wrapped the child up. She said to Hunyuan, "Quickly turn the roast chicken. Don't burn it." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.